What is up, Fence fam? So good to see you again. This is like 3 weeks in a row. I think we've got to chat, and I'm here for it. There's a new face in the studio.
Yes, indeed.
Who are you? What do you do?
I'm Kevin. I'm a fence installer. I started Landmark Creations, and
out of
happy to be
Tacoma,
here.
Washington.
Out of Tacoma, Washington. Yep, Great Northwest.
Very good. So if you guys follow the channel, you know we held a contest, a live training, on-site training contest here at Ozark Fence. We announced it a few months ago and then ran the contest last month. I believe we picked a winner last month, and then here you are.
I can't believe I won. Man.
So let's just dive right into it.
Yeah.
So what was it from your perspective? What has the last couple of days been?
The last couple of days have been in a good way, like drinking from a fire hose of information.
Okay.
Just sitting under the learning tree and just getting some valuable information that I'm going to take back with me and implement, especially on the financial side of, having more structure and organization, with our processes. And that's a big thing I'm going to take back with me.
Okay. Yeah. Fantastic. So you guys flew in Thursday afternoon. The flight got delayed, so Thursday evening. Actually.
Yeah, it's actually probably a good thing that the flight got delayed because I think we had minimal time to get from I think it was Houston and then get over to the gate, and so it was delayed like 50 minutes, which was perfect for us because we got to go try out some food at the airport and
there you go,
and then hang out a little bit and then get on the little flight out. So
and I have a feeling it was a little flight out.
It was little, and like Joe knows, and I'm 6'5". I'm 6'5", 240. And my dad's he's a big guy too. And so, you have these two big guys sitting in these two small seats next to each other. And it was not fun.
A little tight. Luckily, it's only like an hour and a half flight or hour 50 minutes.
It wasn't too bad. No. Yeah.
Well, so then we got you in and got you settled in over at the Bass Pro Hotel. The
Angler's Lodge. Yeah, that place
How was that
sweet.
place?
That place is really nice.
I haven't actually stayed there, right?
The beds are comfy, and for me, it's all about the neck. Like, so I'm tall, I got big shoulders, so I need that pillow. So I crammed like 3 or 4 pillows in. I was like, it's a little too much. 3, that's pretty good, but we slept really good, and the breakfast is incredible.
You guys were telling me about the pancake machine.
Pancake machine. You take your hand and you just put it over the little area, and then the pancakes just come down. There's 2 of them. You put your plate. You don't even have to touch it. The pancakes go on there. They got blueberry syrup. They have bacon and egg, sausage, biscuits and gravy as well.
Fantastic. So then yesterday morning we got you guys picked up. And we basically just had a day of on-site training here at Ozark Fence.
It was basically like a whole day of just classes. Is really what it was. It was just a wealth of info, especially from you and then from your dad, Jim, and then Sarah.
Yep.
Man, it was so good, and it was all day. And then so by the time we got home, man, me and Dad, we hit the sack and we were out. So
it was a full day. It was
fun.
So we did it on a final Friday. So you guys also got to sit in on like our lunch. So the last Friday of every month, we'll have a big team lunch. So even guys from out in the field come in. We all have lunch together, but then also we have kind of a team meeting, right? Yeah. So an organizational meeting where we talk about how the business did last month, what's coming up next month. Let you guys kind of sit in on that.
That was really cool too, seeing your team together, and like the guys here are all on one page, and that was what really stuck out to me. During the meeting, it was probably an hour.
Yeah, so. Hour and a half. Yeah,
hour and a half. You didn't see any guy like slouching back in his chair playing on his phone. No, they're all engaged, even the ones that didn't necessarily put any input. Sure, they were all smiling and having a good time, and that was a that's how I want our company to be down the road. So
then after lunch we kind of got back at it. Had you sit down with Sarah for a little while and talk about basically Sarah is like the technology person here.
Yeah,
I am not the technology person here. Sarah's got it figured out as far as Job Nimbus, the automations there, and just how that whole flow works.
Yeah,
like her PowerPoint presentation is pretty slick,
and she's on it too. And there's time out. Hang on. What about this? I need to go ahead. Oh, okay. We'll go back in there and taking notes, and Dad was taking notes, and no, it was good. Sarah's really impressive.
I agree. I think that's like her corporate background or corporate experience coming out. That process, the procedures and all that.
Yeah. Yeah. She's impressive. Yeah, definitely.
And then last night we went over to barbecue. Barbecue's kind of been the thing the last couple of days.
So the first night was a place called Crossroads.
Crosstown.
Yeah. That place. I haven't had barbecue like that in a long time. So we actually requested it because when I had texted you, hey, Dad's looking at places to eat. I heard you guys have good barbecue here.
Yep.
So
I was like, hey,
was amazing.
I got you.
Yeah.
I got you.
And then last night was Barbecue Mike's. Is that
Missouri Mike's?
Yeah, that was a good place to eat too as well.
That was really good.
As fence guys, we like to eat. I mean, you guys know that.
Listen,
we like to eat.
That's right. After a hard day's work.
Yeah, well, we don't care if it's corner store food. We don't care if it's, fast food. It doesn't matter to us. We just want to eat.
That's right. Just need to stay fed.
That's right. Stay fed.
But and then here we are this morning, kind of doing a wrap up of the weekend or of the week for sure.
Yeah.
And let's be completely transparent. So the reason I wanted to have this conversation with the first contest winner is in the comments of the last contest, there was some skepticism, rightly so.
Yes.
I can understand it, right? So you're telling me this guy is going to fly me out, put me up in a hotel, train me for a day, and then send me home. Is this going to be like a sales pitch, right? Is this going to be a day of here's how you buy from Ozark Fence? and I hope that hasn't been your experience.
No, and it was funny because I'd heard that from almost everybody I talked to. Are you sure it's a legit thing? And the whole reason I've actually found you was because I was on searching Google and whatever else, YouTube to find ways of helping my business as far as the business side. And your channel popped up. And I started going through some of your clips and seeing how to do this and this. And then it was the deal popped up of the contest. And then and really, like I was telling Joe before this started, I usually just listening to this podcast. I just put it on my earphones while I'm working and whatnot and put my phone down or in my pocket. And so then when I entered it, and then when you called me, and then I had people, are you sure they're not trying to sell you something, and
because that's kind of the world we live in.
It is,
right? Yeah. Like that's me as a consumer. That's the lens I view it through. Like, what's in it for them?
Right.
Right.
What are they trying to sell you? Yeah.
That's right. That's right. So, that's why this is really important because I want to get your feedback. We also videoed the whole thing. Now, a lot of what we talked about isn't like for public consumption, maybe, but create kind of a highlight reel, a montage reel, if you will, of kind of what the day is like. So expect to see that coming soon. But yeah, more than anything, what I hope it was just really a day chock full of education.
It was, right? It was, yeah.
One-on-one. So it gave you the opportunity to kind of talk about your business, what you guys are going through, and maybe how you can implement some of what we're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, through the first 2 days, it's a little uncomfortable, getting off the plane, not knowing anybody.
Yeah.
I've, obviously listened to you, online and whatnot, but I, meeting you and then going through the steps was, I got a little bit settled in, cause it's, it's a new experience, but Springfield's awesome, man.
Oh yeah.
I mean, just this city, the people here are nice. And then, it's been a great experience.
Very good. Very good. So I think the one piece of feedback I'm thinking about is it probably should be more than a day. Like I know what all we got through yesterday. And I was like, man, if we could figure that out. I don't know if we'll figure that part of it out, but maybe get a little bit more, have more of a strict agenda maybe or something like that. But I hope you felt it was worthwhile.
Really absolutely. It's like, for a fence guy and a fence business owner, I don't know how else you'd put it. It's like winning a lotto, it's been amazing. The wealth of knowledge I'll take back and apply is something that I'll keep with me. And obviously our relationship will continue. You know what I mean? Like,
well, that's one of the wins for me was I got to meet you. So now I've got a buddy in Tacoma.
Yeah. I mean, we hit it off right away. It's been great.
Good. Well, and one thing too, is you also have some follow-up Zoom calls moving forward over the next 24 months. That way, because I know in my business, like I'll go to a training and I'll come back and then I'll be like, well, I implemented this, but then this other thing came up. And what do you do with that? Or it didn't work quite the way that I saw it work for your business. So 4 follow-ups over the next 24 months. That way it gives you an opportunity to, if nothing else, it gives us the opportunity to catch up.
Absolutely. And like, even through this, this training, it's like, I still have questions, and then this morning, you got anything? Oh yeah, I do actually. What about this and this and this?
Yeah.
because they keep popping up. Because then you're thinking about these processes, and then in your mind, you're applying them to your business.
Yeah. You bet. Yeah.
And you're thinking, okay, well, what about this? What about,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm glad we're going to be doing some follow-ups for sure.
Well, that's the thing is, and again, the way my mind works is I'll like just take it all in for a day. And then that evening I'm laying there and it's just percolating, I'm like, ooh, didn't ask about this, but I wonder how this thing works, that sort of thing.
Yeah. And it's interesting when we went through the estimation process,
yeah,
the difference between your dad and Sarah, because Joe's dad, he's old school, man, and he got pen and paper, but the way he does it, it still works.
Oh yes,
and it still works good, and it's a very simple process.
Yep.
If you were to look, somebody that didn't know it was to look at the paper, they go, "What in the world is that?"
Yeah,
but once he explains it, you're like,
numbers.
"Oh, it's easy." Yeah.
Yep.
Names and numbers and dots.
His dot system is.
Yeah,
it makes sense to him.
Yeah, it does. That's why. What are these dots for? Oh,
yep. Oh yeah, that means this, that, or the other. Yeah. Yeah, and that's. I wanted you to see kind of that point counterpoint between how my sister Sarah runs the residential and how my dad runs the commercial, because it's very much old school, new school.
It is,
right. So, and I come kind of from. I sit half and half, right? So I learned from my dad. He's obviously the one that taught me and trained me. And then I started like getting interested in software and that sort of thing. And then Sarah has taken it and just
ran with it.
Yeah. So I introduced her when she came on, and said, hey, here's this crazy software called Job Nimbus. Takes a little bit of figuring out, but when you do, I think it's worthwhile.
That is really, really cool. That's something we're going to be getting into.
It's like every week she'll come in the office. She'll be like, hey, look what I can do.
Yeah,
and I was like, oh, man. So I thought that was important for you guys to see, like I said, point counterpoint between how they do scheduling, how they communicate. My dad is very much a pick up the phone, give him a call, talk about it sort of thing. And Sarah likes documentation.
Yeah.
So through the CRM, absolutely. We can do emails and that sort of thing. That way it's all documented.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So let's do this. Let's say hi to a few folks out there. Project Metal Music. What is up from the UK all the way?
All right.
Hey, Joe and Kevin. Hey, Project Metal.
What's up?
Stevie Boy Billings. Welcome back. Shout out from Dublin, Ireland.
All right. All the way from Dublin.
The UK is showing up in the chat today. If you guys are here, let us know you're here. Of course, if you got any questions, be sure to ask them. That's one of the things we were talking about before we went on, was that we can also kind of have a follow-on conversation about yesterday, or any questions you might have come up with too. Yeah. But if you guys are out there in the crowd have questions, shoot them over.
Oh man,
Mr. Fence is here.
Mr. Fence,
what's up, guys? What's up, Sean? That's
Sean?
My question for you. Good to see you here. I thank you. I appreciate you guys showing up. So this was the first ever contest, and we were all kind of figuring it out. I'm sure you felt that. We were all, because I met with the team. I said, here's how I think it's going to go. Mm-hmm. But when we're in the middle of it, who knows?
Yeah.
Like, all bets are off. Let's figure it out. But for the first ever, I think it went pretty all right. I think it did too.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we were the guinea pigs.
Sure.
So to speak, in a good way.
Yeah, that's right.
It was great.
Very good.
Yeah, it was great.
We went over a little bit of everything. We started off with finance, because that's kind of my area of the business, is just making sure the finances are squared away and just kind of the overall business aspect of it. Then what's
so great about this is, like, with a lot of guys in the business, they don't want to share, how they got to this point.
Sure.
How you grow from one crew to 2 to 3 to buying another building or getting in, leasing a building. People don't want to share that information, or at least are not, or at least closed off to it, And so it was, I'm a curious person in general. I want to know how is the sauce made, man.
Sure.
And that was what was really cool to see, was how, these are the processes in place. It's not just, throwing it to the wind and hoping it sticks. It actually is a process that gets worked day in and day out.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm glad you picked up on that, because sometimes it's easy for me to forget that. Yeah. You do the same process over and over, and it just feels like the thing you do, right? Yeah. So we talked a little bit about Profit First, about how we apply that in our business. Yep. Just because if you guys haven't read the book or heard the audiobook Profit First, you should. I'm in no way affiliated with them, but we do run the system, and I think it works pretty well. And just kind of introduce you around the team. So the final Fridays, we have the whole team here, so that's always a little bit better.
Some good eating too.
Yeah, well, there's a theme here.
There's a theme here. I like it.
Yeah, we had lunch catered in, which which was a nice treat for the guys. So usually I'll do the cooking, which not to say that's not a treat, I guess, but yeah, it was kind of nice. You had Chipotle come in, or no, it wasn't Chipotle. It was Qdoba. That's right. I get those two confused.
That was good.
But yeah, so we all kind of sat around, and actually, my wife and kiddo showed up to add a little bit of chaos to the day, but that was fun for sure. And then basically, you got to sit in on team lunch, which is basically we all sit around and kind of chat about our day and that sort of thing. And I think it's important because as our team grows, I think there's a very real opportunity to become disconnected, right?
Yes.
For the different places. I mean, we're all on the same property, but it's easy to become disconnected.
Yeah. And I like the open conversation and dialogue too of, not only just having conversations about business, but, praising where it's due.
Yeah.
I think that is so lost in a lot of businesses is, you'd be surprised even as a foreman, 15, 20 years ago, it would have meant a lot to me for somebody to go, not even a raise, but just, hey, good job.
Yeah, sure.
That means a lot. And so many people don't do that. With my guy, Brandon, that works with me, I tell him good job almost every day because he does do a good job every day. He works hard. So.
I think that's right. Recognition is huge.
It is huge.
It's, hey, I know you're doing hard work and I know you're doing a good job and I see you.
Yeah.
Right. Like
Absolutely.
I see that hard work and I see what you're putting into this. I think it's huge. Yeah. Shout outs are very huge. And that's something that we like to incorporate into the end of each meeting. Just like, hey, who's got a few? And usually I need to start it off because those don't feel natural, right?
Yeah.
To sit in a public setting and give someone a pat on the back. So I'll start it out. And then I think Sarah threw a few out there and then they started kind of coming in from the guys. Yeah. But yeah, I think you're right. I think that's important is to know that the hard work is being seen. And is appreciated from everyone. Well, absolutely. I'll tell you what, we got some powerhouses here today. So Cannon Johnson, good morning, men. Good morning, Cannon. We actually were referencing the Fence Life show earlier. If you guys enjoy watching fence content, you should check out My Fence Life. Hope that's right. The Fence Life, My Fence Life. Search Fence Life, and you'll find them. Every Wednesday they do a live. Very good to see. I think you know this person.
All right.
The wife's here from Tacoma.
She is wonderful.
We appreciate you letting us have Kevin for the few days, not the next few days. I will be sending him back today.
We'll be in Bass Pro for the next few days.
We're going there this afternoon. There's a little bit of time between when this one ends
there again.
And when
I promise I won't spend too much money, babe.
That's a hard promise.
It is. I'd have to actually get another carry-on because I think ours is full. So.
I think they sell those there. So I mean, it's like a one-stop shop. Sean King, this is awesome. So this is the point, right? Is together we get better. And so we talked about that a lot yesterday, like the whys, right? The why of this being the contest, the why of why we build fence, why we'll bring local guys in and kind of do a similar day with them. Because, so Sean's is together we get better. My saying is a rising tide raises all the ships.
Yeah.
It's the same meaning, right? So we're all in this thing together.
Yeah.
And we should all get, to Sean's point, we should all get better together.
Yeah, I agree.
Iron sharpens iron. I think, is that Matt saying? Sean saying? I watch enough of these fence guys. I get a little bit confused with everyone's saying.
Who says what? Yeah.
But I mean, it's all the same. It's all the same understanding, right? Is that, I got just as much out of it as you did yesterday. And so did my team, because when you're working with a fellow contractor, you're also thinking about things pretty critically.
Yeah.
Right. And so we're getting better by helping you get better. It's a win-win.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So we had just as much fun as you did.
Yeah,
and that's one big takeaway for me.
I actually love talking to your installers too.
Yeah. Scott and them. Yeah.
Scott, we talked about our processes a little bit.
Yep.
Like the way you guys install wood fence is not the same way we do it in the Northwest. It's it's different.
Yeah.
And so we talked about pros and cons, and of course we're from the Northwest by Mount Rainier, so our digging is horrible.
We talked about that a little bit yesterday. You also don't get to drive posts.
Yeah, we don't get to drive posts like some of you guys over there in Florida.
We get jealous. That was actually a fairly lengthy conversation yesterday about how jealous
I'm
we
a little bit bitter. I can't drive nothing.
Yeah, when you see guys, Florida, and Sean up in Indiana, they drive posts as well. And when I see them with the driver just going ching, 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 all the way down.
Hey, boys, we're going to build 300 feet today.
It's like, oh, so jealous. I even bought all the stuff. I was like, we're going to do that too.
it didn't work.
No, it didn't.
Hey, the first post went down. Though,
Oh,
didn't it?
I was so excited. The first post sank just like I've seen these guys doing the videos.
Yes.
And I'm like, we're doing it. It's go. And then the second one rejected, and it was only like 6 or 8 inches down.
Yeah.
It just stopped and started bouncing like up. Okay. No one panic. We'll just move it. No big deal.
Your anxiety's starting to rise. I'll go to the next one. No.
But you got to keep a positive face because all the guys are like,
you spent some money
did
on
that
this
happen?
machinery.
Did that happen?
Yeah. Work. Yeah.
And then only about half the post drove. And I was like,
consistency.
If we're going to have to dig half these posts, we might as well dig all of them.
Yeah.
And I was like, I wish I could be like these guys.
We got like one spot, I think, a couple spots, like in Washington, Puyallup, and Auburn. There's a couple spots you can get away with it, but everywhere else, no.
Yeah,
roots and rocks.
Well, and we don't even have like crazy rock. Like we've got just little chunk rock. Like it's, I don't know, somewhere between a basketball and a softball, right? Like about that big.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, you can just like weave around In fact, you cannot. Like that actually isn't a thing. So for those of you that get to drive post, you count your lucky stars because some of us can't.
Yeah, some of us can't. That's not fair.
Yeah, this was a decent conversation yesterday. So we are jealous of you guys for sure. Kevin Nelson is here from Florida, Hip Square Fence Construction.
All right.
Welcome. Thank you. Appreciate it. Now, Kevin, so this is the first ever, right? So this is the first, which stands to reason if there's a first, there's probably going to be a second. And that was kind of one thing we had talked about before. We were looking at the whiteboard that Jeremy and I kind of have penciled out. And on there it says, announce April's visit in the end of January.
Yeah.
And this is just about at the end of January as you can get.
It is.
Technically Monday is, but we're not going to do a special live on Monday just to announce that. So this is the announcement. There's going to be another contest the first of next month, which those of you with a calendar is Tuesday. We're going to announce it both in the Facebook page and also on the YouTube communities tab. We're going to bring that form, the same form that was filled out last round. We're going to bring that live again. One important note, it was a great question that you had is like, hey, if they have applied before, can they apply again? I think so.
So I'm in. I'm going to apply again.
Yeah. You never know. Now, it's not like a random drawing, though. So we're going to look at it. We're going to be like, well, he was just here. And I'm just saying, we've had a lot of fun. But we got to try to spread the love a little bit.
Spread the love around.
So that's coming up first of next month. So on Tuesday, watch for that on the Facebook page and on the YouTube community tab. We're going to make a post where we open up that form again. If you entered and you weren't chosen, enter again, please. It doesn't mean we don't like you. It just means that we had to only choose one. And
you're not going to regret it. I promise you, you will not regret it. You are going to get a wealth of information that you're not going to get very many places, and you're going to get it. You're going to see it firsthand in action. So it's like a class. It's basically from start to finish. You're going to be learning start to finish. So bring a notebook. You're going to learn. So, and you're going to have fun too. This is a really, really fun place.
It's what we try. I mean, we kind of talked about that yesterday when we were talking about kind of culture, is that we try to build a place we would want to work at.
Absolutely.
Right. So I've worked. So during 08, 09, or the housing crisis, I took a second job over at Lowe's, and I learned a thing or two about maybe negative company culture, just the way maybe not to do things. So, but I took that experience and perspective and said, well, we want to build a place we would want to work.
Absolutely.
So I always hope that's what we're doing. Right. And part of that is having fun with it. I mean, if you woke up Monday morning and just kind of, back at it again, that's not fun. No one wants to do that. You gotta
love what you do. I get up I look forward to work every day, whether I'm out in the field working, or I'm selling jobs, or I'm meeting with customers, or getting material. I love it. Sure. I love every day getting up, and I look for it's Sunday, and I'm thinking about the next day. I'm already excited. We've already won.
Sure.
If you can love what you do, you've won. You've already won.
That's right. Yeah. If you can get up excited to go to work.
Absolutely.
As this conversation came up in one of the Facebook groups Monday morning, somebody, and actually I think posted a video like, hooray, it's Monday. Like, there's more people out there that get excited on Monday.
And you can see it with you guys, even your dad.
Yeah.
I asked him that question yesterday. Is it still fun after all these years? He had a big old smile on his face. He's like, yes, it is.
Yeah. Well, because if it's not, then what are you doing?
Yeah.
And we had a conversation kind of like this the first night in talking about folks that chase money. right?
Yeah.
So that's a completely different experience. If you're only in it for the money, it's not fun.
Yeah.
And it won't last.
No.
Right. So, but the people that realize that money is a tool and kind of move past that,
Yeah.
those are the ones that
Yeah,
find
and
some
it'll never
happiness.
be enough too if you're miserable and you're making decent money. You
Yeah,
know, like
right.
I've worked for a large corporation too, and
Sure.
we made decent money, and I was miserable.
Yeah.
I was unhappy.
Well, because I think the word fulfillment gets thrown around, right? So
Yeah.
it's just not fulfilling working in those types of situations.
Right. Yeah.
But
You don't feel fulfilled when you leave the day. You feel like, man, I did the same thing and it was
Sure.
monotonous and I didn't like it.
Well, and I think that's what's great about the fencing industry in general, right? Is there's never 2 days that are exactly the
There's
same.
never a dull moment.
No,
Never.
no.
There's never a dull moment in fencing.
Well,
and if there is, you appreciate it because the next day is not going to be dull.
Because the next day is going to
Yeah.
be kind of crazy. And that's the thing is like there's never ever 2 yards either. They're the same, right?
Mm-hmm.
We had a decent conversation about neighbors the other day.
Yeah, we did.
There are neighbors everywhere. And some of them are fun to be around, and some of them maybe not as much.
That's right.
But again, so never a dull moment, never 2 yards are the same. But even on the business side, on the back end of it, there's never 2 days they're the same either. So that's why I tell the guys that come on as the support team, the guys in the shop or the guys that do inventory, work out on the lot. Like still for those guys, no 2 days are the same either.
No, they're not.
But I think that's important. I really do.
Yeah, it's just variety is the spice of life, and in fencing, it's like every day is you have some variety of something.
Yep.
You appreciate the good customers when they come, and then the Karens come, and you're, having to deal with them over and over again sometimes.
Right.
And then they usually come in batches. It's usually like you have 2 Karens in a row, and then you get a bunch of good customers, and then it's like, oh, come on.
Yep. Yeah. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
So yesterday after lunch, I had to make a call, and then Sarah had to return an email. I think my dad had to make a call. We had 3 all at once.
I saw that.
Like, oh, good. All right. Well, we're going to need about 15, 20 minutes
Yeah.
to handle this, and then we'll just get back at it. But you're right. They come in pairs of 2s and 3s. But then once you get through that,
Yeah, back to normal for a little
smooth
bit.
sailing. Yeah. That's right. That is right. Well, guys, if you're here watching, let us know by saying hi and let us know where you're from. So, Kevin, tell me a little bit about your fence story, your fence life story. Oh, sorry. I don't mean to take that from Canada. Just what is your story?
Oh, okay. Well, my story is I was 20 years old in 2003, and a friend of mine runs a fence company out of Tacoma, fence specialist, and his name's Herman, and he hired me on as a helper.
Yeah.
Actually, I think I was in the gate shop first, did some gates, and then went out to the field. They had a merger. They had a merger with a bigger company, bought them in 2003, and I got laid off. And I went to a couple different fence companies, and for about 10 years. And then I think it was maybe in 2011, I think it was when I hurt my back. I had a roll of 7'9" gauge walking up a muddy slope and slipped, and just my pelvis got thrown out of whack, and had damaged a disc in my back. And this injury just kept lingering.
Yeah.
It wouldn't get better. And so I was looking for a way out. As much as I love fencing, like
Sure.
I needed a way out. And so then I applied and worked at a very large aerospace company in Everett, Washington. And I was there for 8.5 years. And during that time, when I took that job, I moved my family from Tacoma all the way up to Everett to live with my father-in-law, and so we could be closer to work because we couldn't pay our bills. And it was totally the wrong decision. It was one of the worst decisions I've ever made. And not that I didn't love living with my father-in-law and all that. It's just we moved away from our church and our friends, and it was a life lesson.
Sure.
And so we were up there for a long time, and I kept trying to get a transfer back over to one of the plants that were closer to home. Never happened. All the doors kept getting shut. I tried and tried and tried and tried. Nothing was working. And then between all this, I was doing side work. I was doing, my back was getting a little bit better. I lost some weight at that point. I was getting physical therapy, and I was starting to slowly do side work again. And then by the time 2020 of, I think it was April, is when everything shut down. We were off for 6 weeks. And so I was full. I was doing work that whole 6 weeks.
Oh.
And I never forget it. Driving home, the wife was with me, and she said, "You seem so happy." And I said, "I am." I said, "Because this is what I love to do. I said,
Yeah.
I'm fulfilled. And I was dirty. I had concrete all over me, but I was happy.
Right.
And so as time went on, I've been pondering this question of like, maybe I need to start my business and get out of here. You know, I was 37 at the time, and I was like, maybe I need to get out of here, you know, because I don't want to be here forever. I'm
Sure,
miserable. And
sure.
on top of that, I was doing the drive. I was driving an hour to work in the morning from Tacoma because we had moved back home.
Okay.
Because so Sound Transit had bought out my father-in-law's property. So we had a choice to make. It
Okay.
was either live there next to the plant or move back home with church and family. And I chose church and family.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so then what happened was, you know, time went on and I was doing this drive, and some days 2.5, 3.5 hours to get home sitting in traffic.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I did the total, and it was 27 days a year I was sitting in traffic.
A month, basically.
It's
1 month
basically
out of the
a
year.
whole month sitting in traffic away from my family. You know, I got a boy, he's going to be 10 here coming up.
Yeah.
And it was really bugging me.
Sure.
And so it came to the point where I started thinking about it and tossing the idea around. And so when this was all happening at our church, we had an evangelist come through, and he was asking me about it. And he said, well, what are you going to do if they lay you off? And I said, well, I'm thinking about starting my own business. He said, I like that idea. He said, maybe I'd ask your pastor and see what he thinks. I said, sure. I walked over and I asked him, and my pastor's eyes lit up, and he said, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
And so then as time went on, I got a voluntary layoff notice from this company I was working for, and I had a decision to make. And I was tossed. You know, I'm making good money here, but
Sure.
I'm miserable.
Yeah.
But here's the unknown. But
Yeah.
I know I love it, and I know I have connections in it.
Yep.
And then so one day I was leaving work, and I'm leaving work, and this guy cuts me off in the parking lot. And I almost laid on the horn, jerk. And the guy cuts me off, and he slows down, and on the back of the bumper sticker, or he had a bumper sticker in his, or maybe it was a window decal in his window, and it said, "Die with dreams, not memories." Or die with memories, not dreams. Well,
Yeah.
and die with memories, not dreams. And so it just hit me there, and I was like, man, this is something speaking to me here.
Yep.
And as I'm driving onto the freeway, I-5, my pastor calls me, and he says, hey, what are you going to do? And I said, I don't know. And I said, I'm kind of leaning towards you. He said, well, let me just leave you with this advice. He said, this opportunity may never come again if you don't take it. And he said, in whatever decision you make, you need to live with it.
Yeah.
And don't turn back and go forward. And I said, yes, sir. Hung the phone up. I said, that's it. I'm making the call.
Yeah.
I'm making the call. And I went into work the next day. I hit the early request for layoff. I cashed out my 401k, and I took it all, which is funny because I had COVID, so I was covered. I didn't pay a penalty on it because I actually had COVID that
Oh,
year.
no way.
Yeah.
Okay.
So and as time went on, my last day coming into the shop, I'm having these doubts. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
The voices, what are you doing? This is a dumb move. You got a career here.
Mhm.
And I stopped and I said a little prayer in there. I said, God, if I know I'm doing the right thing, but if you would be so kind to show me one more sign. And I turn around and I'm walking down the hall and I see this big poster, and it said, there's 1,000 reasons to celebrate the move. And I said, thank you, Jesus. I'm gone.
It's about as clear
and
as
I didn't
it
turn
gets.
back. I didn't turn back, and I haven't looked back. And then during that time, the same guy who had gave me my start, he made me a foreman before in 2000. I was 22 years old. He made me a foreman. I was young. I didn't really know. Shouldn't have been in that spot, But he came to me, caught wind. He said, hey, man, I heard you're starting your business. And he said, why don't you come sub for me? And I said that, and it just lined up.
Sure.
And then so what I do now is I sub 4 days for a company out of Tacoma, Fence Specialists. They're an awesome company, wonderful people. I sub for them 4 days a week, and then I do my work 2 days a week.
Okay.
So that's kind of the story in a nutshell.
Pretty good mix.
It's a pretty good mix. I got a great working relationship with them. I've known all of them for almost 20 years. So,
oh, wow.
We're really tight. I mean, and Herman is like A+. He's top notch. So is the whole crew. I mean, they have, all their welders, their office people. reminds me a lot of here. And
Sure.
and their company
On a
reminds
much
me.
larger scale, I'm sure.
Yes, because and when I started there, they were very small like this,
Yeah.
smaller, and
Yeah.
now they've grown exponentially.
Yeah, so they run
they've
like
been
14,
blessed.
15 crews.
Something like,
close
I think it's 12 to
in-house.
14. I'm
12 to
not
14.
quite sure, but yeah, with
Yeah.
subs, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, it's quite a few.
It is. So it sounds like, so it's funny when you look back, right? When you look back at your past, everything seems to line up.
Yeah.
Right. Now at the
Yeah.
time, it doesn't, it's a little bit harder to
Yeah.
see that.
Man, I was miserable, man.
Sure.
I was miserable. And that those years I was up north, I was absolutely miserable. And it you know, we talked about this yesterday. You don't really appreciate the good times until you go through the bad times.
Yeah.
And sometimes you got to walk through your nightmare to experience your dream. And that's just the truth. Sometimes you have to go through that bad road
Sure.
to get to the other side, to look back, you know, and that's where I'm at right now.
I think that's a solid point to make, you know, and it happens to everybody, right? You'll have a series of, you know, 2 or 3 of these customers that come along, or you'll just have 2 or 3 days. It seems like the deck stacked against you and you're just having an awful time over. You're like, what am I doing? Like, is this even the right call? Like, did I just totally screw up here? But you push through it, right? Because that really is the only option.
Because I've had my doubts, man. Like, even in like the first year, we were out of the gate busy, really busy out of the gate. I hired one of the guys. He's in high school. He goes to our church in Ricardo. I hired him. He works with me when he's not in school. So in summer or, you know, Christmas breaks and whatnot, he'll work with me. And then I've hired Brandon full time, and he's amazing. And so I got a good, you know, start. You know,
Sure.
So we got 3 guys with me included. You know, and so it's worked out well. But even that being said, you still have your moments of like, oh, man, how do I get here? You know, how do I get from where I'm at to where's the next step, and what does that look like? And that's part of the reason why I filled out, you know, the deal to come, you know, visit you and whatnot, was because I needed some intel on how to get that to that next point.
Yeah. At least a vague idea, kind of what that roadmap looks like.
Yeah. What does it look like? Yeah.
So we've had that conversation before on how important like some general roadmaps are, because, you know, if you plot me down in the middle of the woods and you told me, all right, you need to get from here to, you know, Washington.
Yeah.
Okay. Which way is north? It's that way. Yeah. Then I need to go. But if you were to have someone who's like, all right, here's a compass, right? Like, here's how you can navigate a little bit. And you need to stay northwest, right? Stay between north and west. You're like, okay, so at least I've got an idea where I'm headed, you know, and everyone's roadmap isn't going to look the same.
No.
Right. So, and again, to use this analogy just as long as I possibly can, if I was headed to Washington from Missouri and someone else was headed to Washington from Texas, our paths would look a little bit different, right?
Yeah.
Like, but they would probably look similar though.
Yeah.
They would look north by northwest sort of thing.
Right.
I think that's what we're trying to do, right? Is tell guys, here's the roadmap I've used to get here. It might work for you also, or a version of it. And just shared experiences, right?
Yeah.
So taking those steps can be hard. I mean, and they don't get easier, right? Like it doesn't get easier.
It does not, no.
So I shared with you yesterday, we're making some decisions in our business and some potential growth and what that looks like. And those steps aren't just blatantly apparent either. So a little bit of stepping in the dark, right? But I went and met with someone recently where they kind of gave me their roadmap. So I was like, oh, okay. So these are the things I need to look at. This is kind of how that direction goes. And I honestly think that's what those of us that have these channels, you know, and I'm going to forget somebody, but I'm going to try to name everybody off. So you've got Mark, you've got Sean, obviously, you've got Dan and Cannon. You've got these guys with these YouTube channels that we're basically all trying to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Right. We're like, hey, it's scary going alone. It really is. But if we can be there to at least give you our experience, show you kind of where we've come from and where we're headed, maybe that helps.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
So ultimately, I think that's what this was about. Right. Is bring somebody out for a little bit more one-on-one.
Yeah. And I appreciate that too. It's like, you know, so I'm able to ask whatever questions I need, you know.
Sure. Well, because part of this is, you know, there are conversations that we could have personally that we can't have on YouTube. And not that it's anything scandalous or it's not like anything like that, but it's just private information.
Yeah.
Right. But if you can come in and we can sit down and have a conversation, that conversation can happen.
Yeah.
Right. Just to say, here's what our finances look like. And that's one of the things we did kind of right off the bat is I pulled up the laptop and say, hey, here's the bank accounts and here's not necessarily showing here's the bank accounts, but showing here's how they're separated.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
But that's certainly not something that we would do on YouTube.
No.
Right. So, but it allowed that to happen.
Yeah,
and that's really
absolutely.
what I wanted to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And it did. It was, again, I keep saying it over and over again, but it was great.
Good.
I mean, it was wonderful. And I almost want like another day or two to.
Sure. Well, and that's the thing is, and after I dropped you guys off last night on my drive home, I was kind of thinking like, how can we make it better? Like it was a great day, but I think even on your best day, you can find room for improvement. Right.
Yeah.
So it's like, how do we make it better? And that kind of came up in my mind is like, if this was a 2-day thing, then we could, but it's like, how do you make that work too?
Yeah,
because then it's also,
stuff,
well, and it's asking you to be away from your family and business for another day. Right. So then it's that whole thing.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, you do it does get a lot crammed in like a couple days, but it's information that's invaluable in my opinion. So,
well, and I hope that also is where those 4 follow-ups in 24 months come in.
Yeah.
Right. So, we can pick up on conversations where we had to cut early because we were out of time, or you go to implement and say, hey, here's this thing that came up, or maybe it's a completely new thing altogether. So what we're looking for is just like kind of ongoing interaction as well.
Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you one thing that really stuck out to me was this orange here. This is not a gimmick. At the airport, orange truck pops out orange. He's even got orange shoes on right now. You can't see him. But that's branding right there though.
Yeah.
So,
well, and you and I had that conversation.
Yeah, we had a conversation about branding. Yeah.
So you're going bright
neon green. This is our old logo. We have a new logo. But we're having a hard time getting it on. So we're gonna have to simplify it. We're having a hard time getting anybody to print it on a T-shirt or a hat.
Yeah.
So our new logo is awesome. My brother, he had one of his gals that works for him or works with him create our logo for us. So
nice.
But yeah, that's another side of it where like the branding, the coloring. I actually heard you talking about this, and it was like, all right, well, I think everybody in our area is like black and red, and then blue and gold. I think.
Yeah,
blue and white or something.
That sounds right. Yeah,
everybody is.
Very regal colors.
And I'm like, well, what way can we stand out? Well, I love green. That's one of my favorite colors. So neon green it is.
Yep,
it's gonna be bright. You saw my carry-on.
I did. So when he came out of the airport, I was like, I love this suitcase because it is bright green. And then that actually got us onto the conversation. You're like, well, funny you should say that.
And Crystal's my wife, she bought the regular suitcase. It was black with that stripe of green.
Okay.
And then so when I came home from work, she goes, well, I got you the carry-on. She goes, but it's like full neon green. I'm like, that's perfect.
You nailed it.
Nailed it. Yeah.
Well, color branding is massive. It really honestly is. And I actually got this from a friend of mine here in town. They're yellow, right? So they're a heating and air plumbing company, and they yellow. And now they take it, as far as I take it, they take it further. So they've got a family lake house down at the lake, and their dock is yellow. Like it is, everything in their lives are yellow.
Is his beard yellow? Does he have a beard?
Well, on special occasions, so he does the gold glitter.
Oh, he does.
So it's close. It's close to yellow. Yeah.
He's committed.
But that's the thing is, when you dive in, it makes an impact, right?
Yes,
like
really
people start kind of connecting some dots. One of the stories I shared with you the other day is we had a local Ram dealer. This salesman, I've never met him before in my life, calls me up and says, hey, just wanted to let you know, we got a truckload of trucks in. I'm like, oh, okay, that's great. He said, and 2 of them are orange. They were this special half-ton super package, whatever. But they're orange. He goes, and I know you guys love Ram trucks and you love orange. And I just kind of chuckled. I was like, well, we don't need any half-ton trucks at the moment. We're fine on that regard. But my dad had to point, he's like, this guy has never met you before in his life. But he knew to call you because 2 of those trucks are orange as they're rolling off the truck. That's branding. That's color branding.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah.
Yep. And it's real though. It is absolutely real. I went to a training down at Chattahoochee Stain. I want to say Chattanooga. That's not right. Chattahoochee Stain. And I showed up. So my baggage didn't make the connecting flight. So I get to the airport in the final destination and no suitcase. Like, oh, that's fantastic. So I went and checked with the attendant. She's like, oh, it'll be here tomorrow morning. Well, that's fantastic because I need to be dressed tomorrow morning, actually. Yeah. And then my clothes are in that. So I showed up in jeans and just a regular black t-shirt.
Oh,
and
you disappointed them, didn't you?
All the looks I got were like, is he okay? Like, is that actually Joe? Yeah. Yes, sir. Are you okay? Like, all right, here's what happened. My bags got lost. I was just traveling in this shirt because it's a really comfortable shirt. And that was the day I made a commitment to myself. I would never travel in any other color but orange.
You will just find in case. A comfortable orange shirt.
I have several comfortable orange shirts now. And because now I wear one and I keep one in my backpack. That take as my personal carry-on.
These last 3 or 4 days without an orange shirt, I don't think.
No, it's the Boy Scout motto: always be prepared.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so you'll learn this as you get into your color branding journey. Your wardrobe will turn green. My closet is literally an orange rack.
Okay.
And then there's a few things on the lower rack that's like everything else.
I think I'm gonna take up on that.
I'm telling you, we could get into a whole color branding conversation. But what's funny is people get to know that your color is green or mine is orange. So now, like if promotions companies will stop by. Hey, we would love to do, the Ozark Fence Cups, or we'd love to do, the pins, that sort of thing. But they're always orange.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh,
I mean,
okay.
For crying out loud, your cables on these microphones are orange.
Yeah. Let's see if we can get this in frame. So XLR cables, orange.
Yeah.
Like, that's always the question, right? Is like, hey, I need this thing. Like, well, do you want it in orange? Yeah. That's a silly question. Yes. Everything orange. So the chairs that we used to have here in the YouTube studio, obviously orange. Like, it's just a thing. It's just really
it's awesome.
I love these Stand Still Experts hats because the lettering is orange. Unfortunately, with the rebranding, they have moved away from these hats. So this hat is now a collector's item.
It is.
I need to be very careful with it. I need to wash it very carefully, probably by hand.
Did I hear you telling a story about an orange tree or something, or a bush or something?
So, all right, here's the thing is there will come a day where you're not allowed to bring home anything that's green. That will happen. So this happened at my house because I infiltrated the entire house with orange, and Taylor, she just wasn't ready for that. And which is understandable. It's a lot to take on right at the first, where everything I bring home is orange. So I wasn't allowed to make purchasing decisions for the house because there was a lot of orange stuff in the house. But so we moved into this new house, and then this new house is within an HOA that has some rules. One of the rules is about the trees. You have to have one tree that meets this, that, and the other in your front yard. And then, okay. Well, our tree died. Trees die. I don't know. So knock on the door. They said, well, the tree in your front yard is dead. Like, oh, notice that. Like, I'm really hoping it comes back in the spring. Like, it's not. It's like, it's dead, and you need to replace it because in HOA covenants. Okay. So Taylor says, you know anybody that does trees? Well, I guess you get to know landscape guys. Sure. You get to know all the guys. Like, I know a few guys. So I texted buddy and I was like, hey, I need a tree, and the tree needs to meet these specifications. He's this kind of tree, that sort of thing. He goes, yeah, I can do that. What color do you want it to be in the fall? Like, is orange an option? He says blaze orange is an option.
Man.
Fantastic. And this is spring. So, of course, trees are green in the spring. So I am fertilizing this thing like crazy. Like, just making this thing grow, giving it every chance possible. And then that fall. So I usually, when I leave in the mornings in the fall, it's dark out. So I'm not paying attention to this tree, which means in the afternoon, I turn that corner and I look down the street. Not yet. Drive home next day, turn the corner, look down the street. Not yet. But then one glorious day, I turn the corner and this thing is blaze orange. And I back in, and my neighbor's like, the tree,
even the tree.
I was like, yeah. And he laughed. He was like, that's awesome.
Oh, man.
And there's a guy walking a dog. It sounds like a movie. There's a guy walking a dog, and he kind of chuckles too. the neighborhood thinks it's hilarious.
Did you actually decorate stuff inside before you went outside to do the?
That's why I lost my purchasing.
I was gonna say, because
yeah.
you know, my wife, she'd never let me do anything green inside. You know, so
Well,
but outside she's like, yeah, you know, you have green grass. That's what you have.
So let is a strong word. So Taylor didn't necessarily like let me do stuff in the house. I just would bring stuff home.
Okay.
And then that's when I was told no more.
But you got to do like a little bit at a time, and
that's where I failed. That's where I failed, is because I was just like, we're going orange.
And then she asked you about it. You're like, well, it's always been there.
Yeah, that thing's always been the teapot. Yeah, it's always been orange, hasn't it?
Coffee pot. Too?
Yeah,
it's always
got to be orange. Yeah, all the cups are orange. I think it's been that way forever. Well, I came on a little too strong, so that's how I lost the purchasing decisions or the responsibility for the house. But so we do this tree, and it's blaze orange, and everyone thinks it's hilarious, except for when I come in the house. Taylor, bless her heart, did not think this was hilarious. She said, the tree in front of the house? I was like, yeah, I mean, looks like it's doing great. What do you mean? She goes, it's orange. Like, well, it's fall. Like,
yeah, of course it's orange.
I was like, she goes, all the neighborhood is gonna see it. And like, well, the last two guys I just saw on the way in think it's hilarious. I think we're good. And that's when I lost all purchasing responsibilities for the house.
Standing.
Oh, it is.
It is.
Oh, it is.
All right. So you didn't got to dig it out.
I invest heavily in fertilizer for this tree. Right. I am invested in this tree. Because listen, I know the next tree I will not get to choose. So we need to make this one stick.
Make it count. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's it. Color branding is huge, and it's fun, right? It really is a good time. And like I say, people just get to know you as the person that's in orange, for you that's in green, right? And the reason that's important is now all of a sudden you're associated with a color that's common, right? So when someone's needing to buy a fence or needing to repair a fence or something, you need every ace in the hole you can get to stay in the back of their mind, right? So maybe, just maybe, an orange car drives by. And they're like, orange? Watch those are fence. They're the ones that do fence.
Exactly.
Something to that effect.
Yeah.
Same thing with green. So if someone needs a fence and they see a green truck roll by, not even yours, but they're like, you know what? Landmark. That's right. Landmark are the guys that are obsessed with the color green.
Yes.
Yeah. And we make fun of that ourselves. Like, we, on radio commercials, we'll make that joke ourselves. Like, we are the folks that are obsessed with the color orange. Because I'm a dad and I love making the jokes. Orange, glad you picked Ozark fence. It's
gotta be your slogan, man.
We do this on Facebook, where once a week we'll put up a funny meme that has to do with oranges, right? Nothing to do with fence, but it's like one orange is talking to another orange, and the other orange says, I can't understand you because I don't speak Mandarin, right? Like, that's funny. Nothing to do with fence, nothing to do with Ozark fence, but it's an orange joke. People think these are hilarious.
Yeah.
Like, they love it.
So the dads are laughing out there.
Absolutely. Well, and I get to make dad jokes all the time. So it's a win-win for sure.
Absolutely.
But it's important. It really is. You know, just becoming obsessed with something in a healthy way, I guess, is good for the business, because then everyone else picks up on it.
Yeah.
Right. You become known for that thing. And you try to correlate things together, right? You're like, the team that my friend that does yellow, their slogan is, the big yellow truck will let us know we'll let you know we're there. Right. So now anytime that anyone sees a big yellow truck, they know DeLong Plumbing. Yeah. Right. So, and that's in their jingle, and it's the big yellow truck. Now they've got vans and box trucks and cars and all that, but the more obsessed you can get with it, the better. Right. Absolutely, for sure. Let's catch up on some comments here. My Fence Life. That's exactly what's called. I think I called it the Fence Life. Apologies. My Fence Life. No, it's a lot of fun, guys. So last week, Dan and Cannon were talking about automations, and we actually referenced them yesterday when we were going through the Job Nimbus. And I was mentioning to Sarah, like, I was watching them talk about automations and Job Nimbus on My Fence Life. Like, you're going to have to go watch that. So if you guys get a chance, you should absolutely watch them. Gasurk Distributors. Hey, guys, great shows so far. We're hedging things a little bit. Like,
so far we're good.
It could get off the rails, but so far, good show.
But he's also watching from Philly in the snowstorm.
Snowstorm.
I don't think he's gonna. Hopefully, he doesn't click off.
Yeah, right. Well, just lose
I mean,
connection
hey,
altogether.
it's snowing out there and it's snowing hard, so just get a cup of coffee,
Right.
and just hang out.
Just come hang out, which actually I'm going to be calling you guys. So Concerted Distributors, we're setting up a training event up in Philly for the spring. So could be calling you after the show. So those of you that are in the Philly area, stay tuned for big announcements. Adam Sims, fellas love these.
Oh yeah.
I do too. Here's the thing, guys. We were talking about like the training event. We're talking about this. One thing you guys need to understand is I enjoy this stuff just as much as you guys.
Iron sharpens
Maybe
iron,
a little
man.
bit more. That's right. That's right. And I enjoy being helpful, right? So whether we're talking about the live Q&As, whether we're talking about the recorded content, bringing folks in, or the live training events, plug. The Standing and Ceiling Experts University is coming up next month at the end of the month. If you need to register link is in the description below.
I got to see some of their stain up close yesterday.
Yeah, I went and looked at the stain tank and some of the pre-stain lumber. It's really good stuff, guys. It really is. They sponsored a live show. Thank you.
Yes,
appreciate it. But yeah, so whether we're talking about the live training events at on site, or those would be off site for me, to be on site for them. Yeah. But in these different places, I enjoy them. I really do. I enjoy this, getting to meet new people, hear the stories. I'm a big story collector.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. That's the thing. As much as you guys love these, I might love them more. Miguel in the family says, Miguel? Blessings, brothers. Blessings back.
Amen.
From Lorain, Ohio, near Cleveland.
All right.
Very good. You're our first Ohioan. Is that the word?
I think
Ohioan? Ohioan
today.
Some
family in Ohio. I should know that. But
there you go. There you go. They are also Ohioans, maybe. Or maybe that's not. Let me know in the comments below. Lech says, hey, would you mind explain why brick fences are not that popular? Are they even permitted as per building code legislations, regulations? Why don't you take that one? So if we're talking about in Tacoma, Washington, brick fences or probably brick walls, why aren't those as common probably around yards?
I would say probably because of the weather, but I'm not quite. We don't see them a lot where we're at up in the Northwest. I mean, you'll see them here and there, but a lot of the walls that I've seen that are actually like fences around, they're falling apart. They're either not built right, or they're just, it's not convenient, I guess, for what the application is. I mean, there's a lot of homes, so trying to keep their dog in. I mean, they're not going to go the route of getting a brick fence made.
Yeah. And I think that's the same here. I mean, I think a lot of it comes down to weather, and that if we're building a freestanding masonry wall, we get some really cold winters here. Yeah. Right. And so I think that's going to play a role into this. I think costs probably is going to play a role into this too.
Yeah.
And like just as much as trades in general are struggling to find good help, the masonry industry. So I have a friend here that had a masonry company, and I heard his trials and tribulations even before trades in general had a hard time finding good help. He was having a really hard time finding good skilled masonry help. So I'm sure that doesn't help either. Yeah. So to your questions about legislation or regulations, I mean, it's not really regulated, at least here in Missouri, that you can't have a masonry wall. It's just not as prevalent.
It's not everybody's first choice, I would say.
Right. Yeah. Now we'll still see like masonry columns, right? We're actually doing a job right now where it's a masonry column every 16 feet. So every other post.
So I've installed fences that had the masonry columns and whatnot. So
yeah, that's a nice look.
It is a nice look. Yeah.
I think it looks incredibly sturdy that way. But in terms of like actual masonry walls, I think it's probably a mixture of weather, cost, and really available masons.
Yeah, exactly.
Great question. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Good question.
Christopher Campbell says, in what situations does the pin offer you actual okay. So talking about the pin, bingo. Offer you actual advertising. Do you order in bulk and pass them out to customers, or are they just something you have in the office? Same with coffee mugs. Thanks. We offer them, or we buy them in tremendous bulk. I think we buy them like 10,000 at the time to bring the cost down. And then because the cost is so low, we pass them out at trade shows. We got them in a cup up at the front office. All of our salesmen have them. I also take them to our bank and say, hey, I know you guys get low on pins sometimes. Here's some pins, and and it's funny, like hearing like how fence guys use things similar. Talking about the Dan and Can show, my Fence Life show, Dan was talking about how he takes them to restaurants. Like that's a trick I love, is having about a pocket full of these, because servers always need pins, right? They're always, the pins are always running off and that sort of thing. And these are decent pins. They're not just like the El Cheapos, but so they like getting good quality pins.
Yeah.
So, and of course they've got our name on them in our website. And I think that the point here is that they're good quality pins. So when you hold it, it feels right, it writes well, that sort of thing. So you're going to keep it around. Now, is there a possibility that it just gets tossed in a junk drawer or in a pin thing in the truck or whatever? Sure. Yeah, that's fine. But the thing is, they're blaze orange. So they're orange and black. So there's a good chance if someone sees it, they're familiar with our color branding, our advertising, that they see it and they go,
I mean,
that's an Ozark fence pin.
I snagged one and put it in my carry-on. So I mean,
beautiful.
There you go.
Beautiful. So they do serve an advertising component. And when we go to trade shows, home shows, lawn and garden shows, that sort of thing, we'll take about 100 of them and just spread them out on the table and just tell, are these things free? Of course. Yep. Take 2 or 3 if you really feel so inclined, because you really want to be top of mind for everyone, right? So what are the chances that someone is riding with one of these pins and then someone asks them about fence? I don't know. The return on investment on this pin could be massive.
Could be.
And the downside really isn't bad. Like, obviously buying 10,000 of them gets a little bit spendy up front, but then the cost of these pins is super low. So, but we do have them throughout the office. We have them everywhere. Like I said, I take a pocket of them with me when we go to restaurants and just start passing them out, and servers love it. I didn't cause a scene at the cafe this morning because we had company, but no, I like to play fight with the servers there because they had a yellow DeLong plumbing pin. And so now I'm going to just file that away in my head. So Monday I'll probably go have lunch down at the cafe and I'll take a fistful of these things with me and say, hey,
that's a great idea.
Yeah. Say those DeLong pins are kind of rotten. I hear the ink runs out and all that. So I got some good pins.
Keep in mind, this is a place where people sign the walls at the cafe.
That's true. Yeah, it's right on Route 66. It's like a little. I use the term "hole in the wall," not
it's great
in a derogatory meaning. Yeah, there's I think 6 booths. There's probably 4 tables, and then there's a counter that may seat 10 or 12 people. Not a big place, but it's the same counter that's been there since I was a kid. Right, so I have vivid memories of a kid of walking down there, getting a grilled ham and cheese and French fries on that counter. It's just
old.
It's been there for a while, since the 40s, but it's right on Route 66. So you get to see a collection of individuals come through, and it's a fun place. But you sign the walls,
sign the wall, put the date, put Landmark Creations LLC and Joe Ozark
Fence. That's right. That's right. So we'll come back to that next time you're in town and be like, there it is. Yep. There it is. I hope that answers your questions about ordering the pins. I think they're a great advertising tool. I really, really do. People use them a lot. Some people think that they're overused, right? So I talk to guys when they're making marketing good decisions that don't do pins because, well, everybody does pins. Like, I think that's part of the appeal, though. That
I think so.
It's so common that, when's the last time you went and bought a pin? You know what I mean? Like, everyone always has pins. I think the key to doing pins correctly is standing out.
Yeah.
Right. What can you do? Like I said, we invest in a little bit higher quality pin. Like the grip feels good. It's kind of a weighty pin. If you do it right, I think you could do well in it. Hope that helps. Hey, would you mind explain? Oh, I guess this came up twice. Asked and answered. I hope. If we didn't answer your question, be sure to drop it in the comments below. Christopher says, I know, so this is about pins. I know they are part of creating the brand along with the pins and mugs. Are there any other small market tactics most people that do not use that are effective? So I love going to community chamber of commerce shows. They're typically 1-day shows. Now the home show, the lawn and garden, they're big 3-day shows. It's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's a big deal. But contractors in our area really miss the mark because they don't go to the Republic Chamber of Commerce Expo show, the 1-day Saturday show. They're like, well, if it's 1 day, what good is that going to do? I absolutely love those. And you don't have to go overboard. I take a pop-up that obviously is like a pop-up canopy that's orange with Ozark fence. I take a table that has an orange cover. There's a theme here. And I hand out a bunch of pins and business cards, right? You got any questions about fence? Nope, just want a pin. There you go. Have at it. Yeah. And take two and take one, pass one to a friend sort of thing. I love one-day shows because none of my competition goes. Right. Okay. No one goes to these shows because they feel like they're just small town shows. But here's the thing, at least in our market, most of our market is in these small suburb towns. Springfield doesn't have a ton of residential business for us because a lot of the fences have already been built. The new homes are being built out in the suburbs. Yeah. So finding these 1 day, 2 day shows out of the Chamber of Commerce, they're not super expensive either. I want to say they're $200 or $300. We get one booth. Now the big shows we'll get 4 booths. It's a little bit spendier, but for these shows, one booth, one table, you hang out for 4 or 5 hours, pass out a bunch of stuff, or you just hang out and chat with people. Yeah. You know what I mean? I think is something that at least here locally, a lot of guys don't do. Easy to get into.
You sell a job or two, you're already ahead.
Oh, at $400, yeah, absolutely. And then you got all the rest of that branding for free, right? So there's a tremendous amount of branding that goes on. So when we're at these shows, a lot of the comments we get is, you guys are everywhere. Yes, I'm at every one of these shows and every one of these communities. I want to be the person that is everywhere because, I mean, fencing, people don't do a ton of long-term research on fencing. When they need a fence, they need a fence. Yeah. And it's going to be, who have they seen lately that does fence? Yeah. So if you're at these community events all through the spring and summer, you might catch someone that last month, they weren't even thinking about a fence. But this month, they need a fence. They just got a puppy or whatever happened. And now you're at the Ozark Chamber Show. And they're like, hey, can I get a card? I've been needing a fence. Absolutely. Here's 2. Give one to a friend. Yeah. That's why I love doing the take 2 and give one to a friend, because they usually do. In terms of branding, like with branded content, pins, mugs. So we don't actually do mugs. I say that. I guess we've got some tumblers made that have our names on them, but we don't typically give those out. But, hats and shirts we do. We do pins. We do, God, what else do we do? Well, we partner with the local minor league baseball. So we've got the Springfield Cardinals. They're a minor league affiliate to the St. Louis Cardinals. Pretty big Major League Baseball team. I'm a fan. But we partner with them to do kind of giveaway nights. So, 3 years ago or 4 years ago, we did a hat with the camo hat. So it has the Springfield Cardinals S. It's a camo. It's orange, but it's got Ozark fence on the back of it. Right. So I still see those out in the public during hunting season. Wow. They're big with the hunters. Then 2 years ago, we did a dry fit shirt again, camo dry fit, orange letters, big S on the front, Ozark fence. Actually, Ozark fence was on the sleeve, I think. Still see those things that get broken out during hunting season. This year, actually, it's not public. And we'll just say there will be another giveaway item that is hunter themed. I think finding something that your brand connects with.
Well, there's also, I've heard of an idea of taking water, like if you went to a pool or a beach in the summer and just handed out water bottles when it's really hot, and have your logo around the water bottle and just hand it out to people. Give out water, spend a little money buying the water and then handing the water out.
I like that a lot. Yeah, I like that a lot. Branded water bottles. It's little things like this that. So here's where these items really shine. If there's a need that they fill, right? So for us, hunters during rifle season have to wear blaze orange. They have to have some blaze orange that is easily visible because we're trying not to get people shot during hunting season, right? So that's where the hats, the shirts, the future giveaway item come into play. Is they're blaze orange, right? Which happens to coincide nicely with our colors. But there's a need. People have to wear blaze orange during hunting season, and they want it to also be camouflage because they want to be sneaky with the deer, Now, quick aside, I've seen deer just hang out with people before. So I don't know that you need to be super sneaky about it, but maybe. Okay. Yeah. We fill a need, right? So just as the water bottles on the beach or at the pool fill a need, we just found an item that fills a need. And then people will appreciate it,
Yeah.
and they'll usually hang on to it. Right. So that's really what we're trying to do. Again, so not to beat the drum here, but with the pins, giving them to servers fills the need. People are always taking servers pins now, and times are getting technological. A lot of servers have the tablets now, but you still got to sign that credit card receipt.
And back to like the the marketing part, something we talked about was just the relationship part.
Yeah.
And every one of our customers, I tell, hey, if you or anybody else needs a fence or please recommend us.
Yeah.
And we've had jobs off of that.
Yeah.
Just a neighbor, or we had one guy who we built a fence for that he has some connections with the Tacoma school district. So he has sent us some proposals and whatnot through that.
Nice.
And that was he was a really nice guy. He also owns properties. And so we had built fences at his property.
Perfect.
And I had no idea he was connected to the Tacoma school district. Had no clue.
Sure.
So that's just mentioning it. Talk to people.
That's the thing. It's as simple as asking the question, who do you know that needs fence? You know anybody else needs some fence? Yeah. I mean, we usually tell people the highest form of flattery you can give us is to recommend us to others.
Get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
That is one of the biggest things.
I saw that exact sentiment come up in one of the Facebook groups a few weeks ago. And that I've always heard it, obviously, but it struck home that that's where you find the most success.
Yeah.
Is being comfortable in the uncomfortable. Actually, I think Adam, if that was you, drop that in the comment. I seem to think that Adam did a video or a post on it. And I was like, that is precisely correct. That if you can be comfortable in the uncomfortable, that's where you find success.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of people just want to be comfortable. So they won't venture out into the unknown.
And boy, is it ever uncomfortable, especially when you're getting started and you're talking to people and it's not comfortable at all.
No, because I think I don't know if it's a societal thing or what, but you're kind of taught to not brag on yourself, right? Like,
you're also taught to be kind of guarded a little bit.
Sure.
You put a wall up.
Yeah,
man. When you're running a business and starting one, you got to get past that somehow, some way. You got to find a way past that to talk. You got to talk.
The guys that are successful in marketing or advertising, the guys that'll walk up to a stranger and say, "Hey, you know anybody needs a fence? I do great fence, and here's a card. And if you know anybody needs a fence, I'd love to build them a great fence."
Right. One of the stories I heard that when Fence Specialists, the company I subcontract through, got started, Fred Walden, he started in, I think, 1969.
Oh, wow.
Well, he was doing how the companies got started. From the story I can recall was he was building like a deck or doing something on the house, and the lady down the street said, "Hey, do you build fences?" And he said, "Yeah, we sure do." And he didn't. But he just went over there and did it and got started and started talking to people, and that's how it started.
So Caleb kind of talks about this with staining contractors a lot, that the best thing a staining contractor can do is reach out to fence companies and only say, "I stain great fences, you build great fences. I think we should know each other."
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
Fantastic. Like it's such once you hear it, like it's such a simple concept, but it can have such profound impact. And then there's people in the group, in the Stain Steel Experts group, that have had such success with that by just saying, "Hey, I called half a dozen fence guys and they don't want to do stain, but they know I do stain. So now they'll refer stain out to me."
I'm telling you, where we're at, nobody does stain. I mean, that I've seen, and there's a huge market for it. We actually delved into it last year.
Nice.
And on a couple jobs, and again, it was uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But I even let the customer know up front, it's not something we normally do.
Sure.
And she was totally fine with it. She's like, "All right, just do your best."
Yep.
We can build fences with our eyes closed, but the staining part, it was like, and
it can be such an easy conversation.
Yeah.
"Hey, I see that you have invested. Invest is a current word because these fences are expensive. You've invested quite a bit in your fence. Can I talk to you about ways that you can take care of that investment, protect that investment?" Right. And then it naturally flows into fence staining. That, we offer a product that is environmentally friendly. It has, no to low VOCs. It's the whole thing, but it also protects your investment.
I need to get my hands on some of that stain that Caleb's got there.
I would be glad to introduce you guys.
Yeah,
I really
absolutely.
would.
I'm interested.
We tried some other stain out there in the market, just being honest. And when we were first starting, and the thing for me was the smell. So when you take a lid off the stain, it just smacks you in the face. Now, you were in our stain shop yesterday when we had drums of it that were open. Was the smell overwhelming?
No, didn't even notice it really.
So that's kind of my biggest takeaway is when I put guys in that shop staining boards, do I want them to have to wear respirators and worry about proper ventilation and air turnover? No. Now, do we still ventilate? Of course, because humidity can get pretty high in there. But we're not ventilating for health and safety reasons, right? And we're not worried about guys having to wear full PPE gear with gloves and the rest. Now they wear them because they don't want to get dirty. They don't want to get their hands stained. But we're not worried about rashes or anything else. So anyway, my experience with Stand Still Experts has been incredibly positive, and I'd be glad to introduce you guys.
Absolutely.
For sure. All right. Let's see. I'm trying not to miss anybody because a few videos ago I missed a few people, and I heard about it, and I'm sorry. So I'm trying to hit everybody.
You dare do that.
I know. If I haven't answered your question, drop it down again. I promise I'll answer it. Miguel wants to know how to bid a job where I can put money in my pocket but still be affordable. So we talked about bidding a little bit yesterday in terms of markup and margin. I'm a big fan of 50% margin, 100% markup. Is that right? You double it. So 50% gross profit is what we're after, right? So material cost, labor cost. Now, so here's an important conversation to have is if you're out there on your own and you're doing it with a helper, your labor still costs money.
It does, yes.
Right? Like that, I think that is a huge mental shift for folks that if you weren't building this fence, you would have to pay someone like you to build this fence.
Yep.
Right? So that is part of your labor number. Your number plus your helper's number in total labor. Now, and when we say total labor cost, that includes burden. So when you pay your laborers, you also have to pay, employer's side taxes on that.
Yes.
So that is a cost to build this fence.
It is.
Right? So total labor cost, total material cost, all the nails. So we shared with you our like the job Nimbus estimates. Everything's on there.
Man, everything's on there.
Nails, screws, concrete, wastage. I think wastage is important to have in there just because you're going to lose X percent in cutoffs or what have you. Total material cost, total labor cost times 2. Pretty quick and easy. Get you 50% gross profit. The industry norm is like 33%.
Yeah, I think it's 30.
You multiply, instead of multiplying by 2, you multiply by 1.5. It's how I was taught. It's how my dad was taught. So it's what we came up with. And you would be amazed how your business changes when you change that to 50% gross profit.
Yeah.
One of the things we actually had a pretty lengthy conversation yesterday on gross profit. And the reason 50% is important is because for those jobs where something comes up, right? So it takes a little bit longer. There's a return trip. There's a warranty call, something like that. Now you're not totally just upside down and underwater. Now you might be close to breaking even, but it's also not going to cost you money to perform this work.
Right.
Because we try not to be not-for-profits. There are plenty of not-for-profit companies out there.
Yeah, we're not a charity.
We try not to be. But it's as easy as taking your total cost to perform the work and multiplying by 2. You get to 50%.
And Miguel, I would say, know your value. Value your work. If you do good work, you ought to be rewarded accordingly.
So value is an important conversation to have as well, though, too. I'm glad you brought that up because what I see guys try to do is simply just raise their prices, not raise the value, not raise the experience, simply raise prices. That could work for the short term. But if you can't support that price in terms of value, now you're just overcharging.
Yeah.
Right. And you see that comment in some of the Facebook groups where we talk about 50% gross. They're like, well, I could never overcharge my clients like that and take advantage of them. Fair point. If you are only bringing 35% gross profit value, then you should not charge 50%. You are overcharging your clients. However, to your point, if you know your value, if you're comfortable that the value I'm bringing is at least 50% gross profit, if not more, like that's the magic. If you can figure out how to bring more value and only charge them 50% gross profit, to the moon.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's know your value and know your prices, know your numbers. I mean, that's one of the things that right away when we started, I started doing the research on, and I think I'm going to say it was Mr. Fence.
Yeah.
Was talked about the 4 buckets. That's where I started from was one of the podcasts that he was doing was he talked about the 4 buckets. So thank you to Mr. Fence. That's how I got started learning how to do it properly. Because the first, I think, 2 months, I was sort of kind of getting my numbers where I thought they were good, but I still had this like, I'm not there yet. I need more, you know. So that's it's good to, you know, actually dig into those numbers and see what they are.
Well, and the dangerous part too is pricing based on market price, right? Say, well, everyone else in town charges X dollars for a 6-foot privacy fence. Well, we've had this conversation before with Sean that our 2 businesses that are relatively similar size could be in the same market. We could be next door to each other,
and have different pricing,
have completely different pricing. Our business models are different. Our goals are different.
Your costs are different.
That's right. Yep. That's right. So, and that's why it drives me crazy. I've stopped responding to them for a little while. I was like on a heater on responding to Facebook comments like, hey, what should I charge for this? One, price comparison is one of the tenets for the Sherman Act, which is the anti-collusion. These guys went to prison for this. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously not for asking about price on Facebook, but that leads you down that road.
It does, yeah.
Right. But also the bigger thing is it doesn't matter what I charge for 6-foot privacy fence because your price should be based on your cost, on your numbers. Sean, to your point, Mr. Fence does a fantastic job of really getting deep into numbers. So he has a chart. So when we're down at Chattahoochee, he was a trainer there as well, and he brought up a slide of in the slide reference discounts. So what does offering X% discount actually mean in terms of numbers? And I always knew Sean was good with numbers, just listening to him talk on his show and all that. But seeing this slide, I was like, he is on a different level. He is on a different level. But your point is correct that you have to know your numbers. You can't base it off someone else's business.
You can't guess.
It could sink you. It really could. I mean, because who knows if they know their numbers, right? Or are they basing it off a number they heard 2 years ago, which at this point could really sink you.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's a great point, Kevin, that you've got to know your numbers. Miguel, you really have to know exactly what it costs you to build this fence, both in terms of labor and materials. And again, labor also includes your burden. If it's just you, your labor includes what you would pay someone similar to you, right? So if you hurt yourself, couldn't be out there performing the work, and you had hired someone to perform that work,
right?
What would you reasonably expect to pay them, right? By the hour, and then as a percentage, what employment tax would you pay on top of that? That is your labor cost, right? So how to bid a job where I can put money in my pocket times 2. You take your total cost times 2. It will put money in your pocket. However, bring the appropriate value to.
Yes.
Right. So that would be the worst insult is if you charge the customer that much money, they think they're getting a certain level of a product and they get something totally different. Right. So
setting expectations is the key to life.
Yep. That's right. That's right. Start forming relationships too. So relationships really, we talked about this again the other night. Relationships are the key to business, right? Regardless of whichever business you're in. Because that helps the bidding process along too.
It does.
Right. So forming these relationships, it makes you a little bit more comfortable to ask more pointed questions. Hey, how many bids are you getting? Interesting. Or after you put a bid in and give them a day or two, hey, how did those bids look?
Right.
How do they compare? Don't tell, I'm not asking you so I can change my number. I just want to know how things stacked up. Where did I land? Sort of thing. Relationships are huge. Affordable is an interesting term right now, Miguel, because I would argue there are a lot of things that aren't affordable. Right. Yeah. So, but putting that word in there, make sure that you don't undersell yourself either in the name of staying affordable.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't want to do that.
Absolutely. Hope that helped. If not, drop a question in the comments below. Your videos are very helpful. Thanks for sharing. Do you know why? Oh, okay. So
he snuck in there 3 times.
Case in point, I hadn't asked this question, so I dropped it in. Exactly what I asked to do. Thank you. I believe we covered it though. So typically pricing or could be weather, that sort of thing. Is it something? Okay. New question. Is it something you recommend for a state like Michigan? If it's weather, probably not.
I would say no.
Yeah.
I would say no for Michigan.
Yeah. It's,
I mean,
you would really have to get pretty serious about your footers, your foundation
yep.
footers for this fence.
And the mud you're using.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So probably not. This coming from a fence guy.
Yeah,
I'm not a mason.
We're just fence guys. We have no idea.
But I would think probably not. Miguel says, when doing a wood fence, what do you prefer, nails or screws? Also, I'm a huge fan of two nailing on 2x4s. What is your opinion? All right. So we're going to go ahead and talk about nails and screws. And
this is a topic we talked about yesterday.
This is.
Because where we're at in the Northwest, we build fences differently than the way you guys build them.
Yeah.
You know, when we use 4x4 posts, you know, we either use clips. The company I sub for, they recommend we use clips, and then we screw into the clip or nail into the clip, but we have to use the clips. With Landmark, we toenail, just like you said, we toenail everything in. We usually put two on the sides and one underneath or on top. But we are looking into face nailing, which is what you guys do.
Yeah.
And a lot in the Midwest. And I've just seen this recently, and I'm like, man, that's a better way to do it. Just face nailing, or, you know, how, you know, whatever the process is for that you guys do.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. Yeah. If we're using wood post, we'll face nail. I believe it's a stronger connection.
Mm-hmm.
Now we've talked about this in videos, and there are some people that very adamantly believe that it's not stronger. So to each their own.
Yeah.
Right. So, but if you ask me, my opinion, I believe that face nailing's a stronger connection.
The only argument I've heard from the fence guys that I know up north is, well, now the panel looks like it's much thicker and wider, and they don't like that look. That's the only argument I've heard really against it.
So you've got a 3.5 inch post, a 4x4. You have an 1.5 inch 2x4, right? So now 3.5, 1.5, we're at 3, 4, 5 inches, right? So, and we've got a picket, which this came up in yesterday's meeting, that 1 inch pickets are not 1 inch. We had a little bit, there was a customer out there that was a little bit confused why his pickets weren't the full inch thick. Our fault for putting 1x6 cedar pickets on the form. So anyway, but no, that's right. So by insetting those 2x4s, now your fence is at most 3.5 inches wide. Right. So instead of 5.5, 6 inches wide. That's a fair point. Yeah. It is. Especially, so I'm a big fan of using the Postmaster post. I like using
it. That's another topic of conversation that came up too, is in the Northwest, we don't use those at all. I think I've seen 1 or 2 fences that had them. And I think it's just, it's not being offered.
Yeah.
You know, I think and it's not being pushed. You know, and my dad brought up something yesterday that it was, you know, we live in the Northwest, lots of trees, lots of nature.
Yeah.
So people, maybe like the wood fence look, but I think
that's fair.
To your point though, your fence is going to last a whole lot longer if it's not going to rot out and fall over.
Well, especially in your guys' climate, which is a lot of rain, right? So rot is prevalent, surely, more so than here, probably just because it's a wetter environment. So the Postmaster post, again, I'm not affiliated with Master Halco. I don't get paid for this opinion, but I believe they're a superior post because they've got the lifetime warranty against rust and corrosion. They're obviously not going to warp and twist like a wood post would. And they're easier to replace those panels in the future if they do need replaced. Right.
And they're a whole lot easier to drive for you people down in Florida.
That's right. That's right. We've seen videos of this. We've seen videos. But yeah, no, but to the point that you were saying that insetting those 2x4s make for a more slender fence, it's true. It has to be true. But however, you could do a Postmaster post and get even more slender because those posts sit inside those in line with the 2x4s. But so back to your question, nails versus screws. So if it's an all wood fence, meaning wood post, 2x4s, pickets, the whole thing, I would nail it. Ring shank nails.
Same.
I mean, there will be comments that are only using screws, and I hear you. It's not wrong. My opinion is nails hold just as well when we're talking about the lifespan of a fence.
Yeah.
Right.
I've heard it explained both ways, and I've heard you think about a house, you know, it's the reason it's not held together by screws is because of the flex.
Yeah.
You know, a flex on a screw to break. On a nail, it's
going to give a little bit more. Yeah. Yeah. Now, when we use a Postmaster post, we do use screws. You have to use screws. Well, maybe you don't have to. I've seen Sean's videos where those nail guns just punch straight through that.
Yeah.
Well, and I think Canon had a video using one as well. So I guess I'm not going to say that. You can use nails. We use coated deck screws.
Whatever you like to do.
Listen, that's the
However
message
you
of
wanna
the
do
channel. The best method is a method that works for you, that you can reliably repeat over and over, and you've had long-term success
That's
with.
the thing with fencing. It's like there's no one right way of doing
Yeah.
like all the you know what I mean. There's more than one way to do certain projects.
Well, and there's never going to be a standard fence, right? There just won't be. As different as our areas are, and as different as the products are. For example, you're showing me a picture of a work that one of your guys had finished yesterday. Beautiful, but I was like, oh, those are flat top pickets.
Yeah.
You guys don't use dog-eared pickets? And you're like, oh no one ever uses dog-eared pickets. But in our market, it's exactly opposite.
Last year, I installed a lot of wood fence. I had one dog-eared picket fence.
Is that right?
Yeah, and it's because I pushed it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, and in comparison, I don't know. I mean, never say never, right? But I don't know that we've ever done a flat top picket.
Really?
Just our market is 100% dog-eared picket.
Interesting, man.
So you'll never have a standard fence, right? There will not be. If there's one thing the fence guys like to do, is argue with each other about how wrong they are about something.
We all believe that we're the best.
We've got the right way figured out. Yeah. So there will never be one way, right?
Yeah.
There's going to be guys that use nails. There's going to be guys that use screws. We use both depending on the situation, right? Like my opinion is use the tool that's the best for the job at the time, right? So
agreed.
It's going to be really hard to turn a Phillips head screw with the flathead screwdriver, right? Like, could you do it?
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
Is it the best tool? Probably not. So kind of my opinion. Is that like a middle of the roads trying to stay Switzerland on it? Maybe. But that's just kind of my opinion. We get into this opinion a lot when we're talking about concrete.
Oh, man.
And we'll just wait and see if that one comes up. I don't see it yet, but it's the same. It's the same answer.
Things to say about that.
Well, we've got some time, so let's get through the comments and we'll get into that discussion. But my answer is going to be the same. There is, use the tool that's best for the situation that you're in at the time. All right, Kenny Duga is with us. Speaking of guys that will be training at the Stainless Steel University next month. Speaking of dip tanks, I have a new concept for you if you haven't modified it yet. We have not. And actually, this came up in the team lunch yesterday about making some modifications to that same tank. I felt so bad for him. So one of our guys, Dalton, I don't want to say he's not shy. Like, he will absolutely have a conversation, but he's a little like on the shy side, maybe. He had so Sarah had asked if they ever used the drain plug. He's like, no, I don't even know why that was designed into it. We never use it. I was like, thanks for that.
You're pretty hard on yourself yesterday about your design.
I was. Hey, listen, I will tell you about all the flaws in that
I
design.
went and saw, was it Caleb's you saw?
Yeah.
And you're like, man, mine is like, no.
That's the thing is I designed it in the way that made sense to me. The problem is, at the time I was designing it, I had never used one. So, limited experience. Now Kenny had shared some pictures with me, and Caleb, I'd seen Caleb's a little bit, pictures of it. I was like, oh, I think this is about like what it is. And then I actually went and saw them after this one was built. And I was like, nope, this is not the way. Now, does it work?
It works.
Yeah. We've stained, what'd Sarah say? Sarah said last month we stained 3,000 some odd boards in it. So it works. But yeah, poor Dalton. He had said that about the drain plug. And I made a point of saying that I was the one that had designed it. And he turned so red. But I have not modified it yet. We're currently talking about what version 2.0 looks like. So next month at Stainless Steel University, we should definitely get together and talk about this for sure. Miguel says, is there a website to find out dates and locations of these events we're speaking of? Yeah. So the registration for Stainless Steel University is in the description below. It's going to be the end of February, the last weekend in February, I believe. Next month. And then watch my Facebook page. So facebook.com/the real Joe Everest. Not my personal Joe Everest page, the real Joe Everest, the public page. So I'm going to start keeping that pretty up to date with events I'm going to be at, trainings, that sort of thing. There isn't really one website that is like a repository of all of these dates. So Caleb and I were talking, there's one down in Florida that he's at. We're obviously going to Fence Tech, not teaching at Fence Tech, just going to Fence Tech, and then there's Stainless Steel University. But all of these dates are kept in different websites. So So to answer your question, unfortunately not. But keep your eye out on the Facebook page, facebook.com/The Real Joe Everest, for where I'm going to be at for different training events. Also, keep an eye out there for the next giveaway. Jeremy wanted me to make sure I said this, so I need to say this several times. I have been known to forget things before, and then I was like, "Oh, I was definitely supposed to say that." So keep an eye out on the Facebook page and the YouTube community tab for the next announcement or the next contest. The opening announcement for the next contest. There you go. Christopher says, "Great tips. I do like the branded water bottle and the commerce show ideas." Thanks, guys.
Welcome.
You're welcome. Look at that. And Miguel says, "Sorry, I'm not a huge fan of toenailing. What do y'all prefer?" So I think we talked about it. Yeah. So face nails or using the clips. I like the clips idea. If you are going to inset that 2x4, the clips make sense. But I've talked to a lot of guys that do toenailing though, and the fences last, right? So
I've seen it both ways. I've seen it both ways. I've seen them fall over when they were, 10 years old, but then I've seen them last, on either one. So.
I think you could say that about face nailing. You know what I mean? Like we've replaced some really rough looking fences that were face nailed premature. We've replaced them prematurely 8 to 10 years. So again, I think this comes down to the process that works for you and the process that's the most common in your market. Right. So do whichever one is best for you. But I think if you do either of them properly, they both work. So, all right. We are caught up on comments. If you guys have a comment or question, drop in the comments below. So, Kevin, you said you had a thought on the concrete discussion.
Oh, okay.
We'll open up. I haven't heard it yet. So we'll open up this. It always ends up being a box of worms. But
sure you want to open this up?
Let's do it.
All right. Well, I thought, so I've done it both ways as far as.
What are the both ways?
I'll explain it.
Yep.
Okay. So we've done the sand and gravel, Portland cement on the back of the truck into the mixer.
Yep.
Setting
pretty
posts.
Common.
We've done that.
As kids. Yep.
However, when I started Landmark up, my flatbed didn't have a mixer on it.
Sure.
So I went to strictly bag setting.
Yep.
Now, I've done this periodically through the years, just bag setting.
Sure.
And so when I brought Brandon on, we were bag setting. He says, "Well, aren't you going to mix it in the wheelbarrow or in the hole?" No, we dump water first. You dump, and then you add water, and so on.
Yep. And
I've never had one fail yet.
Sure.
So, and I've also done it the other way. Now, there's a new way that I found out recently from Mr. Fence about the dry packing.
Dry compaction.
Dry compaction. I did not believe that this worked. So I went out on a job. I was setting a 6x6 post.
Yep.
And it was a repair along with the new install.
Yep.
And I actually told the homeowner, I said, I've heard this method. I said, I'm not really sure if it's going to work. He said, "We'll try it." And so I did it just like he said to do. And I compacted it in there. I'm like, there's no way it's going to work. Come on. And I seen the clip of you pulling on it.
Yeah.
I'm like,
yeah. At last year's saying Steel Experts University.
So I get it in there and I can't move this thing. Man, I'm strong.
They're solid.
I couldn't move it. And I'm like, if you get into a pinch, this is a really good. Now it is a lot of work doing the bar.
Right.
That's a lot of.
And I think that's the misunderstanding. Part of the misunderstanding here is Sean is not proposing, and guys that do dry setting are not proposing you just dump it in the hole and then move on to the next post. Right. There is a significant amount of work compacting and recompacting and layering the mix in there.
And then after a job where you've torn out a fence and you've already dug holes, man, you're exhausted. And if you taking that bar up and down, up and down, up and down, you're already worn out by that point. So,
right.
But if you got enough guys, it works.
So I agree. And we use that method for repairs, right? So if it's a repair, we want to do one job or one trip. We're not coming back if we're replacing a couple line posts or something. So we want to do this once and done, one trip. We'll do after I was made a believer last year at Steel Experts University when I was the one, Ken and I were the ones trying to pull that post up. I was like, this thing is incredibly solid.
It's amazing.
Like it's not going anywhere. So then I came back and kind of showed the guys. I was like, now are we doing every post ever like this? No. My guys like to wet set. I personally like the confidence of wet setting. However, if it's a line post, if it's a repair, if it's something like that, we absolutely dry compact. Now we compact the tar out of that thing. And I think that's the key.
It is
Right.
the key. It's really getting in there and compacting it as you're pouring. So
Absolutely.
it works. It's tiring, but it works.
Yeah.
I was a believer, man. I thought that's a hoax. I didn't know.
That's the thing is like I see guys that are in these Facebook groups again that are arguing about it, and I was like, I understand your skepticism. I was a skeptic.
Well, the best way to figure out if it works or not is to give it a shot.
is to try it. That's
give it a shot, and it's like, man, it works.
So Sean, so Mr. Fence, he actually had a live video, I believe it was this past week, where they set several posts in all methods, and they're going to go back and pull them out and try to. And actually, Mark Olson did that over on the SWI channel, or similar. He set one post in each way, one with foam too. So he did a foam, dry set, and a wet set.
Right.
Spoiler alert: they all worked.
They all worked.
Right now, the foam. If you guys have seen my channel, you know I'm not a huge believer in the foam. I'm not.
What if you had a different type of foam? Was it just the
possibly
foam maybe that you were using?
So we've tried the Sika Pro Select, and then we tried another brand of the foam, because that was kind of what I had thought at first.
I've never tried it.
So the one guy's experience, and I have the video for this. So
to prove.
All right. Yeah. To prove this, the Sika didn't work at all. Now with Steel Postmaster Post. Now the comments section has told me that I was wrong because it's only for wood posts. You're supposed to use it on wood posts.
Interesting.
And that is interesting because on the package, it says
you can do
wood, steel, and vinyl posts. So like, well, okay. But maybe it bonds better to wood post. I don't know. But it didn't fill the hole. It actually... Let's also talk about that I'm a fence guy, and I use the words that make sense. I said constrict, so it shrank, right? I was also told in the comment section that restrict or constrict is not the word.
Oh.
So I'm like, well, all right. I looked it up. It looks like the right word to me, but okay. It was not as big at the end as it was in the beginning.
The foam has interested me. I've never actually tried it. I've never given it a shot.
So the concept is right? That you don't have to have water, which if we're talking about dry compaction, you don't either. Okay. But it's also significantly less heavy, right? So you could one guy could carry an entire backyard job in a box.
I mean, I could see that application for like a repair, in a repair scenario where it's maybe tight to, like it's in a wall or something like that. I don't know.
Sure. It could make sense in that, and again, this probably comes down to just having the right tool for a given job, right? So it's not the square peg or the round peg. Maybe it's the triangle peg or something like that. But I tried using the Sika twice, and I've got the videos to show that it did not work in either scenario. And I followed the instructions, because the first video, that was the comments too, was like, well, you obviously tried to make this thing fail because you didn't use it right. If you look at my video and you look at the Sika video on their YouTube page, pretty close. So in our example, it didn't work. Had I been using a wood post, maybe it worked, but we don't use wood post. We hardly ever use wood post. I don't want to say we don't. We have been known to use wood posts. Predominantly, we're using these Postmaster posts. So that's what I'm going to do the test on it with. Right. Is I'm going to test the exact scenario where I would be using it. Didn't work. So now in Mark's video, so he used like utility foam. So from a utility pole contractor. So that's probably a whole different ball of wax. I went and found what was available from our local hardware store. I tried to do the test as if I was a homeowner that said, hey, I've got these 3 posts. I'm going to run to the store. I'm going to pick up my posts. I'm also going to pick up the foam, and I'm going to go set these things. Right. So there is a post foam out there that a lot of people had recommended, but it wasn't available in any of the local stores. You had to buy it online. So that kind of ruled it out for me. There's 2. There's Sika, and then there's this other one. The other one performed slightly better than Sika, but they were both fairly loose. We ended up pulling them out because we needed to put a trailer right where these posts were. So anyway, so that's
interesting. I mean, I've never tried it. I've wanted to give it a shot, but I just haven't had the need for it, I guess.
I mean,
also, here's another topic of conversation that is sort of related. Now, if you were setting post, do you put concrete underneath the post before you put the post in, or do you set it right into the dirt and then so forth?
Yep. So that's in there. So we're actually going to pause real quick and make some adjustments. So maybe Kevin, get the mic a little bit closer. So it's just past top secret sensitive
Oh
note.
man.
So can't hardly hear Kevin.
Can you guys hear me?
Can you hear Kevin? Test 1, 2. Or you should
test.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at the levels. Looks pretty okay. But let us know in the comments below if it's hard to hear Kevin. So these mics are a little sensitive. They're great mics. They really are. So these mics are actually what like professional recording artists use. So anyway,
the studio is actually intimidating. Like if you turn the camera around and showed everybody, it's pretty intense.
So I want to do a video, a walkthrough. So we get a lot of questions about basically how our office is laid out and how the studio is laid out. I want to do another like walkthrough, like video, and I'll show the studio. It's one of those things where, yeah, if you haven't seen it before, it probably is, but it's just, for me, it's just been growing. Right. So we actually started out in a leased office, in a shared office space where it was an 8x10 office, and it was a desk and a camera and like one light. And I had just a fake background, a wood background behind me that was a cloth. So from there, we've just kind of like, we added a few lights, we upgraded camera, we put the teleprompter thing here. So you guys think we're looking at you.
Right.
We're actually looking at us.
We are. We're looking at us.
We're looking at, which is weird. Like right now I'm talking to me, and that seems a little odd.
It is weird.
But no, so this thing is just kind of grown. There's other monitors here and stuff like that. But so from a fresh perspective, it probably does look like a lot. But for me, it's just like, taking about 2 years to get here. Let's catch up with the comments. Miguel says, thank you all again for the wisdom and knowledge. God bless. Miguel, God bless you, and thank you. God bless you, man. Appreciate it. As you guys have comments and questions, drop them in the comments below. We've got, it looks like 40 minutes left or so. We're also going to watch a video of this week's video. So we'll talk about that here in just a second. Seawolf. So Seawolf is actually, so he's from the West Coast. Brent is from California.
Oh, cool.
Actually, I think Brent, right now, I think you're in Southern California, if that's right. So it's lobster season, out on the ocean grabbing lobsters. Good to know. That's awesome. All right.
Yes, we can.
Miguel says they can hear you.
Yeah, so I don't know what you're talking about, wifey.
Yeah. Oh, was that supposed to be top secret information?
It was. Let's break the code here.
Wifey
can't hardly hear you. Take that, wifey.
Yep. So we received reports of bad audio. But maybe
we won't tell you who the masked man that brought it in there was.
No, top secret information.
Not sharing.
There's a lot of confidential stuff going on around.
There is proprietary information.
That's right. So let's go ahead and watch the video. So we've got, I like showing the audience that sticks around for these lives for the whole thing. I like showing them kind of this week's video, kind of a preview, if you will. So this week's video is revolving around the conversation of galvanized before weaving or galvanized after weaving for chain link wire.
This topic yesterday as well.
We did. Yeah. So we were out in the fabrication shop looking at a gate. And it was, what did they say it was? 35 foot, I think, is a slide gate, roll gate. And you had mentioned like, oh, you guys are using galvanized after weave wire. Like, oh, that's what we get.
I haven't seen that in probably 15, 20 years.
Isn't that
it's been
crazy?
A long time since I've seen that. We used to install it all the time, and our hands would be all, jacked up from shaking it out.
The hands or the shirts or jackets from carrying it,
cutting up your,
It's not great stuff, but it's what we have really available in our market. And we've priced some galvanized before weaving wire, but for whatever reason, the galvanized after weaving, it was significantly less expensive. I mean, I really, and this conversation is going to come up in the video. But I'm a big fan of supporting small business over big business.
Absolutely,
right? Not saying anything about big business, but I like supporting small business more.
Me too.
So, and that's typically where you find the galvanized before weave coming from is these independent weavers and operators. But I mean, when you're talking about 18 to 20% savings, that's pretty significant.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, but without further ado, let's watch the video because I've got some thoughts, but I have a feeling we're going to talk about them in the video. So I will bring the video up. Keep in mind, just like Danny Can said on Wednesday, I'm a fence guy trying to figure out technology. So, but we're hoping this will work. Also, I'm a fence guy that doesn't do technology, so you'll notice this video is out of focus. I didn't realize till after these interviews were done that I had flipped the autofocus switch.
Oh,
so
gotcha.
I'm a fence guy. This is literally the view. Let's see if I can get a better view. This is literally the view from their facility, Brenton Manufacturing.
Nice.
They look out on Mount Casper, so they're Casper, Wyoming. This is literally like I'm in their parking lot taking this video. It is nuts. I also didn't do a great job of introducing him. This is Brenton of Brenton Manufacturing. Can't hear the audio on the video. Again, I am a fence guy. So let's okay. We are going to redo this. Share screen. Share tab audio. All right. So let me know. I'm gonna restart this thing again. Here we go again. Let me know if you can hear the audio on this video.
What is up, everybody? Joe Everest, the fence expert. I'm over here at Brenton Manufacturing, and we were actually having a conversation in your office yesterday, and we were talking about galvanizing before versus galvanizing after weaving. And I want to bring that conversation to the viewers because I think that's a conversation it's always kind of gone on, but it's starting to become more and more maybe relevant to the market as you start seeing quite a bit more galvanized after weaving coming onto the market. Let's do this. Let's start off just with very basic. What is the difference between galvanizing before weaving versus galvanizing after weaving?
So galvanized before weaving is the strand comes in already galvanized. So we galvanize the wire and then we weave it together. Galvanized after weaving, they weave the chain link together and then run it through the galvanizing pots. And then you get your two outcomes.
Okay. And I think the term's probably self-explanatory, galvanizing before versus after weaving. But so in galvanizing before weaving, it comes in already done.
Yep.
So it comes coiled up. We saw some of the coil towers downstairs.
Yep.
And that's kind of what those are, nice and shiny and new.
Yep.
And then they get fed through the weaving machine and go from there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, there's going to be folks on either side of this discussion. I'm sure the comments section might have already got started by now, but you fall on the galvanized before weaving.
Correct.
Well, let's start off with like the thing I've heard, maybe not since I was a kid, but for a while, is that galvanizing before weaving. So the strand is already galvanized, but then through the machine that we saw in the review video of the machine.
We actually have these videos a little bit out of order. So I had recorded filming the machine, but you guys have not seen that machine yet. A little bit
looking forward to that.
Yeah, I'm telling you what, like for like a machine guy, it's
pretty
really
cool.
Huh? He's got 4 of them.
Wow.
He's got 4 of these wire weaving machines.
It goes ahead and puts it through that worm drive, puts the twist into it.
Mm-hmm.
Though what they say is, well, that cracks the galvanizing because it's already.
So he has piles of this strand just everywhere, and that was impressive to me too. You can see the machines in the background there. You can see actually some finished wire in the midground, but in the foreground, so they actually produce vinyl strands, vinyl extruded.
Okay.
Strand. So they'll bring in from an outside supplier the pre-galvanized,
Right.
and then they'll run it through their vinyl extruder. It takes, I mean, you should see these things run. I bet it might take an hour to fill up one of those spools, to make one of those spools. It is incredible.
Wow.
And then they'll feed that through the machine.
Already galvanized, and then by bending it, it cracks it.
Pre-galv.
But I can't say that I've ever seen galvanized before weave that rusts at those knuckles.
Yeah, and running these 2 years with it, we've had no problems with it bending, cracking at the bend. If it did, it would be a defective wire, and we would actually send the wire back to the mill. I've heard the argument is at the cut.
Yeah.
So when that chain link's cut, it exposes a little bit of the, raw under material that the galvanization didn't penetrate all the way. And that's where they say causes rusting. So that's kind of the rust point on GBW.
So let me ask you, as a guy that uses a lot of galvanized before weaving, do you see that much what the argument is where that machine snips that wire to weave it, you can get little bits of rust there.
You do see it. Yeah.
You
do see it. Yeah.
Okay. Do you see rusting elsewhere on the wire? So one thing I was always told as a kid was, so you have this smooth wire and then you bend it to make the links, to make the diamonds. And at that bend, that galvanizing would crack. Have you ever seen that?
Not very much. I mean, you do see some rusting, but it's not like it's predominant. You know what I mean? I'll see it here and there.
And to Briston's point, that would actually probably be more on the mill that made the wire. That's probably a coating
I don't
issue.
See it
maybe
that often, I would say.
Got it. Gotcha.
Yeah, the question is though, would that cause failure?
No,
right?
Absolutely not.
And I think that's the point. Is that now could it be unsightly? Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you could pick that one point out of the whole fence where you see a speck of rust. But in terms of failure, I would say maybe not 0%, but like 0.001% chance.
Yeah, pretty close.
That this leads to failure.
Yeah.
Right. I think you're more likely to see failure when we're talking about rust and corrosion at the post ground layer, or where the post meets the ground, or the concrete if it's raised. But you do hear that say, well, it's going to rust at each and every tip. One of the benefits, though, I see of it is it's incredibly smooth.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's already galvanized and run through the machine. Because when you watch these machines work, it goes through the worm drive, it goes through a lot. So any sort of burr that may have been on there gets knocked off anyway. Yeah. But when we were looking at the coils, those coils are incredibly smooth.
Yeah. So the process, when they run it through the galvanizing pot, they have a wiping system, kind of wipes it smooth before it gets coiled up. So yeah, if we get any that have big chunks of galvanizing on them, or spurs or burrs, we'll actually reject those and send those back to the mill and let the mill kind of deal with them. Just because they cause us problems in our machines, and we want to run good wire.
So this is about half of that supply of galvanized wire. He has just an incredible supply.
So did he say on there like how much each one of those rolls can do?
No, we should have asked that question. So you could do it by weight, I suppose. No, that actually would be a fairly good question
so many
to ask.
pounds.
So the machine is actually drawing in 2 spools at a time. So when it's weaving, when it's forming and firing that wire, it's actually, this is the part that blew my mind, is actually weaving 2 at the same time.
So it's actually forming that diamond.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it literally throws the diamond in at a time, weaves it into the existing wire.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Like, it made my head hurt thinking about it's got to twist them both at the right rate at the right time and not get messed up. Now, occasionally those machines will need a little adjustment. So you'll see that it'll miss a few diamonds, but usually there's an operator sitting right there that stops it real quick, backs it out, runs it in, turns the machine back on. It was impressive to visit this operation. I was very impressed. But yeah, so it's pulling from 2 of those coils at the same time.
Wow.
And the crazy thing is, so those coils, no 2 coils have the same footage of wire on them. So they'll be similar, but they won't be the same. So they have a welding machine that when they get towards the end of one of these coils, they'll take a new coil, splice the 2 together, weld them, and then run that through the machine.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, it's hard to say exactly how many rolls each one of these spools would have, but a ton.
Yeah,
I mean, an absolute ton.
Peace of mind too.
Yeah, absolutely.
That way you've got really good wire before you even get started.
Yeah.
Now, when we're talking about galvanized after weaving, I think we're probably all familiar. If you've built chain link fence ever, I think you're pretty familiar with the downsides in that those little burrs, they will just rip you to shreds, little thorns that get left on there. I mean, they tear up your coats if it's wintertime or shirts or whatever. And not a great process, really.
No, I've heard from a lot of installers that on the GAW side that it's a pain to dress,
Yep.
when you're putting it out in the field. If you compare the install speeds and, handling of the chain link, I think most people prefer GBW on the install side. The GAW, it coats the ends and coats where the cuts are, but when you rack it and stretch it, all those little spots right on where the weaves connect break and exposes. And in tests that have been done, it shows that those spots will rust. I would say GAW could be better if they stretched it and then ran it through.
Okay.
The galvanizing process,
Yeah.
just so it's fully expanded, but they don't. They just dip it through, and then when you get out in the field and stretch it, it cracks and causes more spots that can catch you and hurt you.
Yeah.
And so,
and that's interesting because, like I said, growing up, I'd always heard that galvanizing before weaving had issues there at the not knuckles, but where the twists meet. But actually, so the studies show that galvanizing after weaving actually has issues there.
Yeah, and we're talking GAW or GBW. Rust isn't going to appear for about 10 to 15 years anyway.
Yeah.
But when they do start coming up, they both have 20-year life expectancies. You can get 25 years out of some of them if they're, dressed properly.
Sure.
If you're on the coast, on the salt water, you're going to get rusting faster on both. Sure. But in my experience, I would rather have the ends of my chain link in the knuckles, kind of rust than each weave spot. Just for my preference. And
at where those weaves meet, that almost seems like a higher likelihood of a point of failure, higher likelihood, because that's where the stress is.
Yeah, all the tension.
That's where the tension is, yeah.
Well, there is no tension on the end of the cut.
Sure.
That's just knuckled over. All the tension is straight up and down.
Now, I think on either one of them, on either side of this, I think the likelihood of failure of the fence that comes from rust on the chain link is probably pretty low.
Yeah.
But if you were to run this thing out, it'd be interesting to see what the actual lifespan of chain link is. We've got some chain link that we installed at the fairgrounds. I'll have to go back. My dad's got the records, but I want to say it's 62 or 63 that's still there. Yeah. And now it looks like it was installed in 62 or 63. Yeah. There is some rust evident on this fence, but it still hasn't led to failure.
No.
Right. So I think it'd be interesting to see what the true, lifespan of the fence is. 20 years is probably when someone would look at this and say, hey, this has got to go. It doesn't look great anymore.
Yeah.
But when we're talking about useful lifespan, I think it's probably a lot more than 20 years, maybe.
Yeah. So I think personally that the posts would fail before the chain link's going to fail. Yeah. You put a fence up for 25 years, those rust spots where the concrete meets the ground, and if water got in any posts, your posts are going to fail a lot quicker.
Yeah.
I think if you just put chain link up, GAW or GBW, and could put up with a rusty looking fence over time, to where it rusts enough, it just lets go of itself.
Yeah.
You're probably 40, 50 years. In all honesty.
At least.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, this fence was installed in the 60s. Now, not all of it is still standing. The number one contributor to this fence being replaced is cars running into it.
Yep.
So it's right next to a street, and things happen. So cars end up going through this fence, but there's probably a good 20-foot stretch that's still there. Yeah. And I drive by about once a month going out to my folks' place. I thought, oh, still there. Grandpa must have known what he was doing, I suppose. Yeah. But it would be interesting to see the actual useful lifespan of the chain link. And I think you're right. I think when that fence does fail, I think we're going to see it at the post, right at the post where they meets the ground or meets the concrete if the concrete's raised.
Yeah.
So what else is there to talk about galvanized before versus galvanized after weaving? We've talked about kind of the rust points and the burrs.
Yeah, I think I would say this. So in the GBW and GAW world, a lot of the GBW guys are people like me, own businesses, family businesses, and they buy in the strand and weave it together where, it's Merchants Metals and Master Halco that have the GAW,
So one interesting point to note about this, about Merchants Metals producing galvanized after weave, there was a post in one of the local I think it was one of the local Facebook groups over in Oklahoma a guy was selling like 13 rolls of 6'9" gauge galvanized wire. And he posted the tags on the wire to show that it was 2x9x72. But one pallet of this was from Merchants Metals, and it was galvanized before weave. It was GBW.
Oh.
Yeah. Thought that was kind of interesting that they're one of two plants that still hold, they still hold the permits to do galvanized after.
Wow.
But it seems like maybe they're already switching over to galvanized before.
Yeah.
Well, because the EPA and them have already said they're not issuing new permits for these zinc baths or zinc pots or whatever you want to call them, kettles.
Pretty soon you're never going to even see it.
That's the thing. Yeah, once they go out of commission, they're done.
I do miss the way it dresses out. I mean, once you shake it out, like it, the galvanized before weave doesn't quite do that.
Sure.
And I do kind of miss that little effect. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
where you're kind of breaking all those connections and it kind of snaps too. Well, and that's one of the things that Briston was talking about. I hadn't even thought about. So when you do that, when you snap it too, it's breaking all those little links of zinc galvanizing, and it's introducing maybe a point of rust there too.
It is.
I hadn't even thought about that really. Yeah. But yeah, I thought that was interesting that it was after my trip up there to Britain. That's the only reason I knew to look at the tag, is to see if it was galvanized before. After I saw MMI, I was like, oh, wait a minute. Let's look at the tag. Galvanized before weave. Interesting. So they know what everyone else knows, that the days of galvanizing after weaving are limited.
Right.
So they've obviously started getting into the galvanized before weaving.
Just hold on to a roll for relic's sake. Like
back
in the day.
Back in my day, this is what
galvanized after weave.
Yeah. Hey, so my son's name is Jackson. Like, hey Jackson, grab that roll and let it slice you up a little bit. That's what we used to have to deal with.
Yep.
Yeah, all those scars on your arm. Yep. Hey, that'll teach you.
Shoulders all scratched up.
Yeah, back in my day, we didn't have smooth galvanized before weaving wire. And Jackson be like, "Oh, Dad, okay." Yeah. Let me guess, you walk to work uphill both ways.
You put a gunny sack on your shoulder just to pack the wire out. I mean,
that's right. That is absolutely right.
Pits, and they're the ones that kind of push that product.
Sure.
So I think by buying GBW, you're kind of keeping money in your communities, giving it to family kind of people.
Yep.
When you're buying GAW, you're kind of supporting corporate.
Sure.
I mean, not that it's a bad thing. It's just,
something to think about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and that's an interesting point, because that's going to lead into the video we're getting ready to record right after this one, in that the manufacturers and producers of today and tomorrow look a bit different than the manufacturers of yesteryear, I guess.
Yeah.
But that's a good point, in that by buying wire, in this situation from Brent Manufacturing, you're supporting a family, right? And a series of families.
Absolutely.
We had this conversation last night, in that, you and I are kind of alike in that we view our work families as like extended families.
Yeah.
And that became pretty clear as I watched you interact with your guys and gals here. But I think that's important. I really do.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So and not saying anything about corporations, but I like when I'm making my purchasing decisions, I think that makes a difference. I really do.
Absolutely.
Well, guys, what do you think on the galvanizing before versus galvanizing after weaving? I'm sure there's some thoughts on this subject, and they're probably already in the comments.
Yeah.
But if you haven't made a comment, let me know what you think. I'm always in the comments. I respond as quickly as I can. Now, sometimes you guys put a bunch of comments in there, and it takes me a little bit to get back to. But I always end up scrolling through in the evening and seeing what you guys are talking about. Well, guys, I'm Joe Everest, the fence expert, reminding you that good fences make good neighbors.
And that's the video.
That was good.
That
was really good.
Comes out in about an hour and a half, 1:45 Central. But
right.
Yeah, so it was an interesting conversation I got to have with Briston, and so I went up there. So this whole me traveling up there came after I had created a video basically saying, "Hey, this is how wire's made." The first video was actually one of these Burgandy machines.
Mm-hmm.
Come to find out, this place Burgandy sells these machines all over the world. I was talking to one of the guys at Brent Manufacturing. He was telling me about, like, they're like 67 countries or something like that they're in. But anyway, so there was one of those machines running, but it was it was like a minute video of how this machine runs. So, like, I've got some questions on how this thing works.
Yeah.
I want to see one of these things run. So I was like, if you guys know anyone at a manufacturing facility that has one of these machines, and it was like a day or two later, Gabe from Brent Manufacturing reached out. He's like, "Hey, we we've got these machines. We'd love to have you up to take a look at them and answer any questions you got.
Yeah, it's a cool experience, you know?
It was. I was on a plane 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
And that's only because the next week I was already going to be out of town. But I was like, I will be there
Yeah,
as
that'd
soon
be
as
something
possible.
really cool to see.
It was like I am really interested in how mechanical things work, like why they work and how they work.
Yeah.
Still, I mean, I shot video of how this worm drive forms the diamond, and I still don't get it. Like I'm the guy filming the video,
Yeah.
but it's got two, so one at a time. Okay, like I can wrap my head around that. That makes sense. Two at a time, at speed.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
an engineering
something to
feat.
watch. It really is. So, but Gabe had invited me up to do that, and I was like, hey, while I'm here, let's have some conversations. Also, some interview conversations on GAW versus GBW. Also, we talked about manufacturers of today and tomorrow look very different than the manufacturers of yesteryear.
And it's also great knowledge for you to pass on to your customers when they ask about your wire and
that's right.
How does it made, and you can just
absolutely
answer accordingly.
Well, and that's an important point too, is talking about domestic made materials too.
Mm-hmm.
Not only is this wire domestically manufactured, it's manufactured in a small business that like there are families being supported by making this purchasing decision. Not saying there aren't families being supported when you buy from a corporation, but I think the dollars can be more impactful when spent with groups like this. It was incredibly interesting. I plan on going back up again and visiting them at some point, just because it's just like your trip here. I got to be that with them. And so I was like, teach me all the things I need to know. But
likewise, I want to come back as well. So
of course. It's so much to take in. And when you get home, when I got home, I was like, I have so many more questions. I thought about a few more things on the plane, and I need to, so it was interesting visiting them. That we could probably have that conversation in the last, 15 minutes. If you guys have questions or comments, drop them in the comments below. We've got about 15 minutes left, and then we're going to Best Pro.
Oh yeah.
So this is not going to be a 5-hour live interview.
No.
We are cutting this at 2.5.
That long.
But I think let's spend the last few minutes while we're waiting for a few more comments to come in, talking about just manufacturers of today and tomorrow looking very different than manufacturers of yesteryear. And this is probably a precursor to the video. I'm probably gonna say a lot of the same stuff as the video that's coming out maybe next week. I'm not sure what to. So this video, I wanted this video to get out prior to FinTech, because I think this is an important conversation. We're having it more. I think it would be worthwhile to have this video out to continue this conversation into FinTech. If you guys are coming to FinTech, I will be at FinTech. Gosh, it's in 2 or 3 weeks. It's coming right up. Also follow my Facebook page for dates on that. So we're doing a meet and greet. We're doing a meet and greet at several. We're doing stainless steel experts, my salesman, Mr. Fence Tools. We're doing meet and greets at each 3 of those booths throughout the event. Follow that schedule. So, but no, I want to have this conversation. I want to start this conversation now so that we can continue it into FinTech, because I think it's important to have, especially as markets. Like, I had no idea there were markets that hadn't seen galvanized after weave in years and years.
Like us. I hadn't seen it in a long, long time.
It's interesting.
Yeah, it's because it's it's just been one way for forever. And I'd even asked about it, and it was that's long gone. We don't install that anymore. But
now you can go back. You're like, hey guys,
for the first time in a long time,
there are some boys in Missouri that are still using that galvanized after weave stuff. I found it,
and I did hear them, in the shop saying what we used to say. Man, this stuff tears your hands up, man. It's bad.
Yep. Yeah, because we were talking about my trip up to Brent, and I was like, man, it's smooth and it's nice. Yeah, the fab guys were like, what? That is an option? We never knew that was an option.
Yeah, he looked at me. I said, this is galvanized after weave. And when the shop guy's like, yeah, I guess it is. Like, yeah, I haven't seen this in a long time. You can tell because the little, the bubble up on the knuckles there. So
the thorns and bubbles,
thorns and bubbles that cut you up.
Yeah. So I think, but so I said, like I said, I wanted that one to come out beforehand as soon as possible. So I just got back from that trip this week. Last Friday was my first day back. So thank you, Jeremy and Will, for getting that video out incredibly fast. But in the following video, the following videos are going to talk about the manufacturers of today and tomorrow looking very different than yesteryear, because I really feel like we're going to see this shift. I feel like there's going to be more Brenton manufacturings pop up throughout the country independent. I don't want to say smaller shops because they put out a ton of wire,
Yeah.
but maybe say independent shops, right? That aren't part of a larger corporation that are putting out quality wire, but also they're being responsive to industry demands. So that was one of the things that we go in to talk about in the video is, and we had talked about yesterday, like in the gate shop. So for a 6-foot cantilever gate, they like to use 5-foot wire, 5'9" gauge.
Yep.
Now we were able to bring in some 5'9" gauge after a pretty significant weight. But in stretching that out, the guy's like, if it could be 58 inch,
Right,
that
not
would
to
be
cut knuckle all the wire
premium.
on the gate. Yeah.
That's exactly right. So,
well, in a special order, if something comes in where it's like, hey man, we have an 8'9" gauge repair, and well, it's going to take however many weeks to get it. You can, if you had something local that the guys would do that, you can get it quicker.
Exactly right. Yeah. We had just priced some more truckloads of wire to come in, and one of the sizes, I want to say a 6'9" gauge. The response was it was like an 18-week lead time to come in.
Wow.
Like how are we even talking about 18 weeks?
Yeah.
And that was for, I want to say it's for 6'9". It was either 6 foot or 8'9"
4.5
gauge.
months to wait for that.
Yeah. Man. So can you imagine if you asked for 58-inch 9 gauge?
Yeah.
Like they would just laugh and laugh.
Oh, yeah, sure. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
At some
point.
It
sounds like you need to order 60-inch 9 gauge and cut it down, I guess, is going to be the answer.
Oh, yeah. That I
right?
guarantee that'll be the answer.
Or if you really don't want to wait for that, maybe get you some 72 and cut that down.
Mm-hmm.
We did that for a lot of years. 6'9" gauge, cut it down to 58 inches. Now you've got all the time in cutting this wire, and then the wire gets scrapped. Like the excess gets scrapped.
All that money gets scrapped.
Yeah. And let's be clear that scrap money is not good money. You know what I mean? Or it's not a bunch of money. So, you end up losing, in time that the scrap payment does not justify the labor on cutting that down.
Right.
So that's where these guys are going to shine is, and that's one of the things that came up in the video again, is I asked Briston, I was like, so how much lead time would it be for like a 58-inch 9 gauge wire? And he's like, I don't know, a couple weeks.
That ain't bad.
Fantastic.
Couple weeks.
Fantastic.
It is.
Yeah, that's right. And we were laughing about 6'9" gauge because at 18 weeks, he's like, you know what? I actually have a truckload here. It could beat you home.
Really?
Yeah.
Man.
He said, I could put it on a truck today and it will be to your lot before you are. That's incredible. But I think that illustrates kind of where we're headed is more independent shops that can be more responsive to industry demands.
Right.
If 7-foot 9 gauge became a thing or 7-foot 11 gauge became a thing, trying to get that from a large national supplier would probably also be tough. Whereas these independent suppliers or independent manufacturers would see that in the marketplace and say, hey, I'll put one of my machines making 7'11" or 7'9".
Right.
It was interesting to see them switch over sizes too.
Mm-hmm.
So they did a switch over from, I believe it was from 4 foot to 6 foot
How
wire.
long does that take?
About half an hour.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
It is. I thought it would be a few hours, because you have to, and they were also switching from 11 gauge to 9 gauge. So you have to switch the whir drive. You have to switch the turrets that are doing the knuckling and twisting. And there's a lot going on. About half an hour. So
that's not bad.
Yeah. And that's going to inform my, next time I hear one of these manufacturers like, well, we got to switch over, we got to switch a line over. Like, okay, I've seen it happen. It takes about half an hour.
Yeah.
So don't make it sound like it's going to be weeks to switch this thing over.
Buddy. Yeah,
exactly. But no, I think that's interesting. And I think you're going to see this with suppliers too. I think you're going to see it with wholesalers, more independent, regionally based, maybe wholesalers come out of the woodworks because, we kind of shared this conversation the other day too, is so like right here in Springfield, we're 3 hours from anybody. And which means all of our trucks come on Thursdays. Why is it Thursday? I don't know, but they all come on Thursdays. So I could see a regional supply house being fairly popular because they can be more responsive to, getting the material to a customer when they need it.
Right.
And one of the things I always say is, the first one of these suppliers that switches their trucks to Monday will make all the money.
Oh, everything's Thursday.
Everything's Thursday.
Yeah.
So they could call around Friday to these contractors and say, hey, what wasn't on the truck yesterday that you wanted on the truck? I've got a truck that's going to be there Monday.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, sign me up.
Yeah, of course.
Sign me up.
So I really think that's where this is headed. Yeah. I really do.
It's going to be better for the industry as a whole, I think.
I think so. And we haven't even gotten into the customer service conversation yet. Now, if you're one of my suppliers and you're watching this, I think we both know this conversation is coming, right? That I think we can all agree that customer service now is much different than the way customer service has been in the past.
Yeah, customer service is pretty much non-existent in almost all facets of life right now.
Just because there's so much demand and there's not enough supply, right? So there's all these factors that go into it, but I really think these regional suppliers, regional manufacturers, independent folks are really going to get that right.
Yeah,
so you're going to see guys and gals that really get customer service right, and they'll be the ones that win. We talked a lot about relationships while you guys have been here, and I think that goes hand in hand with customer service, right? Forming these personal and business relationships that if I had someone that I formed a relationship with that the customer service was on point, but they were a few points higher, they were 4 or 5% higher on whatever, fittings, pipe, whatever, I would probably still order it there. Knowing that my experience is going to be better there than it would be elsewhere.
Right.
I think price becomes less of a consideration.
Yeah, it does.
Now, like I said, on this wire, 18 to 20%, that gets to be a little bit different, right? But I think if it's within a margin of error, if it's within 4 or 5% or something, then you're going to see folks that start switching their buying habits over that way to more regional independent suppliers. So,
yeah.
What do you guys think? Let me know your thoughts on that. I think this is also going to be a conversation that comes up at FinTech, which would be interesting because most of the national suppliers and wholesalers will be there. So I think it'd be interesting to have them be part of that conversation because, I mean, this obviously isn't a secret conversation. This isn't, we're not trying to keep this conversation from anyone. I'd like to hear their side of,
it's a reality people need to be talking about.
And here's the thing too, the local guys, the people at the branch level of these national wholesalers, they get it, right? They can hear the frustration. Yeah. There have been conversations about this, but a lot of times their hands are tied just because of procedures and regulations, that sort of thing that they have to deal with. So, this isn't as much of a reflection on the branch level of these national wholesaler suppliers. But it is a reflection of that side of the industry as a whole.
Yeah.
So I'd love to have this conversation continue into FinTech. So, we could do that. So if you guys are going to be at FinTech and we're going to continue these conversations there. Actually, we got a condo. We're going to take this equipment on the road. We're going to be set up to have in-person interviews. That would be pretty cool if this is one of those interviews. Maybe a counterpoint with a national rep versus an independent rep.
Because maybe there's some points that they can bring up too, and you're like, I didn't think of that.
Right. Well, and that's the thing. So probably like just supply availability is going to be part of that conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you could pull from a national supply rather than a regional supply, you're probably going to have more of it. Now, the problem with that though is like we're seeing challenges in shipping, right? Just in the supply chain, not even necessarily from the manufacturer, but just in the supply chain, which I think is again going to lead more towards leaning towards these regional supply houses. If you can't get a truck from California to Missouri, a semi, maybe you could get a smaller hotshot load from Oklahoma to Missouri or Kansas to Missouri.
Right.
So again, I just think things are going more towards the regional level. And it's also people taking care of people.
Sure.
It gets more into that personal family
more
support.
Small business type. Yep. Yeah.
That's right. So let me know what you guys think. If you guys are going to be at FinTech, let's continue this conversation. We got a few more comments here. All right. Crystal says it's better.
It's probably my fault. I've been probably, back away from the mic and whatnot. And she's right. It's more than likely my fault for not sticking close to the mic.
No, it's hard to get used to. It really is. I mean, guys, listen, props to Kevin for being on this show because this isn't a natural feeling, right? To speak very closely into a mic, to look at, it used to be looking at a camera. Now it's looking at a picture of yourself, but you need to do that so that the audience at home feels like you're talking to them.
Yeah.
And there's all these lights and you don't do this every day. It's not a natural feeling.
No, I always get razzed that, I live in the ancient days and, I'm not used to this technology stuff. You know what I mean? I'm not.
Well, you're doing it well. And I appreciate it. Randy Lewis says, why are you cutting 5-foot wire down to make cantilever gate? Cut your uprights at 5 foot 1 inch. Sure, you could certainly do that.
Fair point.
I think we're going off, and I could bring in Matt from the gate shop, but I have a feeling it's our jigs are set up.
Yeah,
right?
and it's
like
also too depending on where your existing fence is coming in and giving room enough for what that wire height is and your gate hardware.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, that's a good point.
I've had some slat link come in lately that was supposed to be 72 inches. We measured every time now. It goes 73 and a half, 74, 74 and a half inches.
Really?
That fence I showed you the other day was 74 inches tall. So I'm trying to, you got to get that before you can get your grade on your fence. So
that's bizarre.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
bizarre.
yeah. Because what happens if you grade out your top rail and then it's
So here's
2
what
inches
happened.
taller?
The gate shop guys cut the wire down. Well, they cut it down 2 inches shorter. So now it's like you got to raise that gate up.
Now
it's
there's
weird.
Now there's gonna be a gap there. Interesting. Great point, Randy. I will ask the fabrication shop guys, and I will come back to you next week with their answer.
A good point.
Greg, you can ask a question. Yes,
you are allowed.
Go for it. We've got like a minute and a half. So, but we will wait for your follow-up question. We'll wait a few minutes. Sir says we're at booth 1621. Stop by and say hi.
Awesome.
We will absolutely stop by, and I will be giving you a call here in the next little bit. So Greg's going to have a question. Greg's going to ask his question. We're going to answer it.
All right, let's wait.
And then we will get to Kasuric. I will get to calling you after this. So talk about spring training. I'm excited. So I like doing this I love doing this one-on-one training because I feel like, well, obviously we can have conversations here that we can't have at like a live training event. But I also like the live training events because it feels like we're having this same impact on a larger level.
Yeah.
So they're both interesting.
Both good,
yeah. I look forward to continuing these. I mean, obviously we're going to do more this year. We're announcing it now that we're opening it up February 1st for the next round of in-person on-site training. So keep an eye out on the Facebook page. Also watch the YouTube community tab. This would be a great time, if you haven't already, to like this broadcast. Also subscribe to the channel. Look right down here. If that button is red, fence guy, but I believe if the button's red, you haven't subscribed yet. They probably ought to, shouldn't they?
Should.
Yeah, should. And then ring the bell. That's what the YouTube guys say to say. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell so that you're notified each and every time that we have new content available. That's what I'm supposed to tell you. So, all right. Waiting on Greg's question. Greg, type it away. Send it on in. We'll get that question answered.
He just ghost us?
He might have bounced. It doesn't tell me.
Greg.
Greg, are you still here?
Where you at?
Does anyone know Greg that they can who? I don't know. Well, let's do this. I also watch the comments after these lives. I literally get notifications every time a comment comes in. So, Greg, ask your question in the comments below, and then I will reply to it. We're going to be together for the next couple hours at Bass Pro.
Yeah, Bass Pro.
We will consult over the question, and then we will respond in the comment section to you. Well, guys, thank you guys for tuning in. Kevin, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate you coming out. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I've had an incredible time.
I am very humbled and thankful.
Well, I am equally thankful. So there we go. We're mutually thankful.
Yes, sir.
Guys, thank you for tuning in. I know these are a long haul, and sometimes it is a little bit long to get through. So I appreciate you guys tuning in. I will be live next Saturday again, just talking about fence stuff. Save up your fence questions or drop them in the comments below. Till next week, I'm Joe Everest, the fence expert, reminding you that good fences make good neighbors. And we'll see you next week.